Chapter 1568. So what if I'm threatening you? The reason why she dared to come alone and negotiate with them about Dumpling's fate was because she had this trump card. Dumpling was her contracted mythological beast. If she died, Dumpling would also die. The other party was powerful and superior. She could only rely on herself. For this, she was willing to bet her life. To be honest, Dumpling and I have known each other since we were young. We've gone through life and death together countless times. We've long been family. If it can't continue to be with me in the future, I'll definitely be very sad. Chu Luiyue touched Dumpling with a sad expression. At that time, maybe one day it'll be too sad and directly die. When Dumpling heard this, it immediately raised its head and crazily rubbed against her face. If she died, it wouldn't live either. Yizhao finally couldn't hold back and pointed at Chu Luiyue. Because of anger, his fingers were trembling. How dare you? She actually dared to threaten with death. Wasn't this acting like a hooligan? This woman was so shameless. Yizhao had lived for thousands of years and had always been expressionless. At this time he was about to go crazy from anger because of Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue bowed slightly and said modestly, "You're too polite." Anyway, she came today to openly let Dumpling continue to follow her. Not agree. Then she could only show her trump card and fight to the death. At first she wanted to talk nicely, but the other party didn't give her a chance. Then she didn't have to give them face anymore. She had nothing to lose. She only had this one life left as a bargaining chip, so she might as well just lay it out on the table. In fact, there was another important reason why Chu Luiyue dared to do this. She was sure that the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan valued Dumpling very much and wouldn't be willing to let it die. Ever since she received the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan's letter, she vaguely felt that something was wrong. After coming here, she finally understood where that strange feeling came from. With the strength of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan, they wouldn't take her seriously at all. In their eyes, a Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix that had already contracted with a human should also have a stain. Even if they were of the same race, they wouldn't particularly care about it. Instead, they would be full of disgust. But they actually wrote a letter to Nan Suhuai, asking her to personally apologize and terminate the contract with Dumpling. Although that letter seemed to be high and mighty, Chu Luiyue knew that the fact that they were willing to write this letter in itself already explained too many things. The Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan wanted Dumpling to return. After arriving here and seeing that Tuanzi had opened the enchantment of the Divine Phoenix Mountain so easily, she felt even more confident. She had already said such harsh words, but they still didn't directly kill it. Wasn't it because of Dumpling? So, even if they hated her to the core, they would definitely not take her life. Shangguan, you've gone too far. Elder Yi Gong couldn't help but growl. He had never seen someone so arrogant in front of them. Chu Luiyue raised her brows slightly. I've already said what I should say. Instead of scolding and reprimanding me here, why don't you seriously consider my suggestion just now? She had already done it, so why would she be afraid of others talking about it? Yi Gong's chest choked and his face turned red and white. Chu Luiyue couldn't be bothered to pay attention to him. She turned her gaze slightly and looked at Yizhao. This was the one who had the most right to speak. With a gentle smile, she added, "Oh, Clan leader Yizhao, if you don't remember what I said just now, I can repeat it for you." Yizhao's eyelids twitched violently. "Enough. I'm not that old and dim-sighted." Chu Luiyue obediently kept quiet and patted Dumpling's butt twice to comfort her. Hey. Dumpling was scared out of her wits. The hall was cold and silent. Both sides were in a stalemate. After a long while, Chu Luiyue tucked her loose hair behind her ear and smiled. "Clan leader Yizhao, can we renegotiate now?" Time passed slowly. The people gathered outside the Phoenix Temple gradually became restless. That Shangguan has been in there for a long time, right? Why hasn't there been any movement until now? They were outside and couldn't see what was going on inside. However, when Chu Luiyue passed through the barrier and was directly brought into the Phoenix Temple, the heaven and earth energy within the Phoenix Temple fluctuated. Therefore, although they didn't see anyone or that crimson gold heavenly phoenix, they knew that they were already here. Yes. Didn't you say that you just want that woman to come over and apologize and then cancel the contract? This shouldn't take long, right? It's hard to say. Who knows how long it will take to cancel the contract? We don't have much experience in this in the past, right? With the clan leader and a few elders here, it shouldn't be too difficult. Is there something else? Or is it that Shangguan Yu doesn't agree? Tise. So what if she doesn't agree? Don't tell me that he can really stir up some waves? I heard that Shangguan Yu is quite capable. Previously, Great Phoenix Dragon Clan's Mao Yao chased her all the way to Lingxiao College, but he was defeated in the end. I reckon that this woman really does have some skills. Mao Yao was too arrogant and didn't check it out, so he suffered a loss. How can the clan leader and elders be the same as him? Besides that, Shangguan Yu is now in our Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan's territory. How could a mere human exalted god like her do whatever she wanted in such a huge phoenix mountain? But I heard that the new Crimson Gold Heavenly Phoenix's bloodline power seems to be quite good. Otherwise, the clan leader wouldn't be willing to spend so much effort to summon it back. That's true. The ancestral worship ceremony is near, and the clan leader is doing this now. Could it be that there's a deeper meaning? Isn't it a little too early to say that? It hasn't been officially tested for talent yet, right? Anyway, everything will be clear when the ancestral worship ceremony arrives. At the side, Ran frowned when he heard that. He lifted his gaze slightly and looked at the Phoenix Temple. It was just a lowly existence that broke through from the 9-colored heavenly pheasant. Why would the clan leader and elders spend so much effort on it? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1569. The atmosphere in the Phoenix Temple became even colder. Yizhao stared coldly at Chu Luiyue and laughed out of anger. Humans are indeed treacherous and cunning. For thousands of years, it had always been hard to change one's nature. Chu Luiyue didn't care about such words at all. If she didn't have some tricks up her sleeve, she would have recognized her long ago. How could she still stand here and talk? So she took it as a compliment for her intelligence. So she said with a smile, "You flatter me. Actually, I'm doing this so that Dumpling can continue to be with me. I know this is hard for you and the entire Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan to accept. So as long as you're willing to agree not to let us terminate the contract and let Dumpling return to the clan to acknowledge her ancestors, then this junior will definitely go through fire and water to fulfill your request." Chu Liyue's words were very sincere. This was the main purpose of her trip. Yizhao stared at her for a long time and sneered. "If you really want its good, you should terminate the contract automatically. It's a Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix, a noble and powerful ancient divine beast. Do you know that you'll be its biggest burden?" The strength of a contracted magical beast was closely related to its master. If the master was a good-for-nothing, then even an ancient divine beast's combat strength would be greatly limited. The Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan's average lifespan is thousands of years. If the bloodline power is rich and pure, it's even more unpredictable. However, humans, even the high gods, can only live for a few hundred years. When you die, don't tell me you want it to die with you. Yizhao looked at Chu Luiyue with undisguised sarcasm. You say it's for its good, but in fact, it's just for your own selfish desires. Every word was like a heavy stone falling down. It was so oppressive that it was hard to breathe. After hearing this, the smile on Chu Liyue's face gradually disappeared. She narrowed her eyes slightly, then raised her head and asked, "How can you be sure that I will only be a burden to Dumpling?" It was as if a thin layer of frost had covered the woman's elegant and refined face. She emitted a chilling aura that caused one's heart to tremble. "It seems that you still don't know me well. In that case, let me formally introduce myself to you. I am Shangguan Yu, the disciple of Nan Su Huai, the dean of Lingxiao College, the descendant of venerable artificer Shangguan Jing, and the consort of Yuntian Tower. Of course, I know that these identities are not worthy of your attention, but you should know what it means to have such a background." Chu Liyue's eyes were tinged with coldness and arrogance. That was the pride in his bones and also the confidence that came from his own strength. "I just became a high god. At the same time, I am already a Xian King teacher and a doctor. Alright, other than that, I'm also a weapon refiner. The Scarlet Heaven Sword Soul was personally refined and fused by me." Her tone was calm and her voice was as clear as jade. At this point she suddenly smiled. "Most importantly, I am only 17 years old now. Do you really think that I will remain at this level for the rest of my life?" Yizhao was momentarily speechless and did not know how to refute. Even if he looked down on the human race, he knew that based on what Shangguanyu had said, she was definitely one of the best among the human race. After a moment he finally spoke in a deep voice. All right. Since you are so confident in yourself, then I will give you a chance. Digression, 6 o'clock in the afternoon. Please verify the star of the monthly votes as soon as possible. Currently, the highest number of votes is 27, and the highest number of votes is 196. It will end soon. In addition, there is a big lazy building event in the comment section today. It has already been placed at the top. Good luck to everyone. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1570. Yizhao raised his hand and pointed at Dumpling. As long as you can help it transform into a human form within a month, our clan will not pursue this matter any further. From then on it will follow you to its death. The Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan will no longer interfere. A deep and resounding voice reverberated throughout the entire Phoenix Shrine. The elders were shocked and looked at Yizhao in disbelief. Could it be that the patriarch had gone mad? He actually agreed to Shangguanyu's request and made such a bet with her. However, Chu Liwei smiled and enunciated every word clearly. All right. It's a deal. Creak. The door of the Phoenix Shrine opened slowly. Countless people who were waiting outside perked up and looked up. A tall and burly figure walked out of the shrine slowly. He looked solemn and dignified. It was the clan leader Yizhao. Behind him, the 5 elders walked out one after another. They were expressionless and indifferent. This disappointed those who wanted to pry a little from their expressions. Even Elder Yu, who was usually carefree, was frowning. The emotions in his eyes were unfathomable. Yizhao stood in the square in front of the shrine and looked down. His eyes were as dignified as lightning, which made people respect him unconsciously. The crowd, which was still a little noisy, suddenly quieted down. Then they bowed together. Greetings, clan leader. Yizhao nodded and looked behind him. Come out. Hearing this, everyone had a blank expression as they looked at each other. The 5 elders were all here. Who was the clan leader calling? Suddenly someone reacted and couldn't help but widen his eyes slightly. Shangguanyu. Or is it that Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix? It should be that newcomer, right? As for that Yu, the clan leader has always hated interacting with them. He already gave her face by not chasing her back. Why would he let her appear here? That's true. By the way, don't you think it's strange? He said that he was going to cancel the contract, but why wasn't there any movement inside? Although that fellow had broken through halfway, she was now considered a Crimson Gold Heavenly Phoenix. Logically speaking, she shouldn't be so calm, right? With the patriarch and several elders around, even if there is a huge commotion, they will be able to suppress it. What's so strange about that? Low murmurs of discussion spread through the crowd. Countless pairs of eyes looked curiously at the entrance of the Phoenix Shrine. There were also some who couldn't help but stick their heads out and look forward with all their might, afraid that they would miss something. A slender and exquisite figure slowly walked out from behind the heavy and solemn door. It was evening. The brilliant afterglow shone on her body, elongating her silhouette, as if dispelling the cold air from the hall. It was a woman. She was wearing a simple and neat red dress with a black jade belt around her waist, which easily outlined her graceful curves. The lines on his body were tall and straight, each appropriate. Her fine black hair was tied up in a simple bun with a black peach blossom hairpin. Under the sunlight, the lifelike peach blossoms were sparkling with ice and snow. In an instant, the clamor from before disappeared. The air seemed to have frozen and the scene froze. Everyone's expression froze for a moment as if they hadn't reacted yet. As if sensing these gazes, the woman raised her head. Her neck was exceptionally slender and fair. At this moment, all her hair was tied up, revealing an unbelievably beautiful neckline. Her skin was translucent and fair like the best mutton fat jade. At this moment, under the sunlight, one could even see the fine hair on her cheeks that glowed with a faint golden light. Her facial features were perfect and she was extremely beautiful. Her red lips curled up slightly, and her originally cold eyes seemed to be tainted with a warm smile. Everyone was stunned for a moment. After a while, a murmur was heard. That's a human. Wait. That woman is Shangguanyu. Although they also looked like humans on the outside, it was just an illusion. Their aura was undoubtedly that of a crimson gold heavenly phoenix. But this woman who walked out of the phoenix shrine was clearly a human. There's actually a human who walked out of there alive. Someone couldn't help but exclaim. They couldn't be blamed for being so shocked. For so many years, the number of humans who came to Phoenix Shrine Mountain could be counted on one hand. Almost none of them were qualified to enter the Phoenix Shrine. But now not only did this Xianguan Yu enter, but she also came out unscathed. How could this not be shocking? After all, many people in the clan thought that after the contract was broken, even if the clan leader and the others didn't take her life on the spot, she wouldn't live for long. Signing a contract with the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan was a great humiliation to them. I heard that this Xianguan Yu's status in the human race isn't low. The clan leader probably wants to keep her alive so that other humans won't come and bother her, right? Everyone made their own guesses. At the same time, they carefully sized up Chu Liyue. Chu Liyue chose to ignore all these gazes. She walked out of the room with an open mind. Dumpling was squatting on her shoulder, but it buried its head under its wings. It wanted to express its dissatisfaction with the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. Chu Liyue couldn't help but laugh. She coaxed, "Dumpling, they're all looking at you. If you keep acting like this, they might think that you're too timid." Zhoosh. Dumpling was suddenly energized. It immediately raised its head and its black eyes darted around. Who dared to look down on it? After looking around, Dumpling retracted its aura and flapped its wings. But this time it didn't shrink back. Instead it looked around from time to time. Chu Liyue's lips curved into a smile. She and Dumpling were telepathically connected. How could she not know what Dumpling was thinking? Wanted to come back and take a look. It also wanted to know what kind of life its clansmen were living. No matter what, the same blood flowed in their bodies. This power that came from his bloodline naturally made him curious and attached himself to this place. For her, it pretended that it didn't care about all this. It was even prepared to cut ties with everything here forever. But Chu Liyue couldn't bear to let it do that. At this moment, some gazes finally landed on Dumpling. Is that the legendary Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix? It looks ordinary. There's nothing special about it, right? Didn't you notice that it's still sitting on that human's shoulder? Isn't that special? Iran put his hands behind his back and looked over. With just one look he frowned. A look of disgust flashed across his eyes. Indecent. At this moment Yi Zhao suddenly looked over. Iran, bring Xianguan Yu and the rest to Fenghuang Valley. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1571. It was a simple sentence, but the amount of information it revealed stunned everyone present. Bring them to Fenghuang Valley? Fenghuang Valley was where all the Crimson Gold Heavenly Phoenixes rested. It would be normal for the new Crimson Gold Heavenly Phoenix to go there. But why did it have Xianguan Yu's name? Iran thought he had heard wrongly and asked hesitantly, "Them?" Yi Zhao nodded with an indifferent expression, as if he did not realize that his words had caused a huge uproar. Xianguan Yu will also stay here for a month. He paused for a moment. Let's arrange for them to stay together for now. Although he could not wait to send Xianguan Yu away, seeing her and Dumpling together made his eyes hurt. He could not go back on his word since he had already made a promise. As far as that was concerned, it was obvious that it was best for them to live together. There was dead silence around the Phoenix Shrine. No matter how much they thought about it, they never expected to hear such words from the clan leader. Some people subconsciously looked at the people beside them and realized that they were all equally stunned. Didn't he want Xianguan Yu to break the contract? Didn't he ask her to come over to teach her a lesson? Didn't the clan leader hate humans the most? What was going on now? Xianguan Yu came out of the Phoenix Shrine safely and even wanted to stay in Fenghuang Valley? Was the clan leader crazy? Of course no one dared to ask that question. Everyone could only respond with a long silence. Iran, what are you waiting for? Elder EU was the first to speak and he broke this practically suffocating atmosphere. You are very familiar with Fenghuang Valley. Arrange for a quiet place for them, understand? Iran choked and subconsciously looked at Elder Yi Gong beside him. Elder Yi Gong's brows furrowed imperceptibly, but his expression soon returned to normal. Whatever the clan leader asks you to do, just do it. Yiran opened his mouth. Yes. With great difficulty he suppressed the surging emotions in his heart and tried his best to remain calm. For the first time he looked at Chu Luiyue in the eye. What exactly happened in the Phoenix Shrine just now? Elder Yi Gong had mentioned this matter to him before. At that time he clearly said that the clan leader planned to let them break the contract directly and give each of them some suffering. But now, why did the wind suddenly change? But in front of so many people he couldn't ask. Yi Zhao looked at Chu Luiyue indifferently. Yiran is one of the best in the younger generation of the clan and many things are handled by him. During this period of time if you have any problems just look for him directly. Yiran frowned. Elder Yi Gong was the first to refute. Patriarch, Yiran is currently at the critical juncture of his breakthrough. I'm afraid that he might not be able to deal with these matters in time. The elders had different expressions on their faces. What could possibly happen in this 1 month? Besides, Shangguanyu had been busy trying to think of a way to help Dumpling break through, so they didn't have time to stir up trouble. That was not what he had said when he was trying to seize power for Yiran. Now it's troublesome. On the surface it sounded nice, but in fact he just didn't want to waste time and energy on these things. Yi Zhao's expression didn't change. Elder Yu probed. The ancestral worship ceremony is around the corner, and Yiran is busy cultivating. It wouldn't be good if he was delayed by other things. Coincidentally, I don't have anything to do during this period of time, so why don't I take charge of everything here? Although he was one of the 5 elders, the important matters had already been divided between Yi Gong and Yi Shang. Only some insignificant matters were left for him to deal with. He was very free. Elder Yi Gong's expression changed. Patriarch, Yiran and I didn't mean that. Yi Zhao ignored him and only glanced at Elder Yu and nodded. Then you can take them there. Elder Yi Gong wanted to say something but hesitated. In the end he tactfully kept quiet. Chu Liwei responded and turned to bow to Elder Yu with a smile. Then I'll have to trouble Elder Yu. Elder Yu actually didn't have any ill feelings towards Chu Liwei. In his opinion, she was indeed quite capable to be able to bring a 9-colored heavenly pheasant all the way to this day. Moreover, from some of the previous things she was really good to Dumpling. Just these were already pretty good. Elder Yu raised his chin at her. Follow me. After saying that, he moved and quickly flew in a certain direction. Chu Liwei was about to move when Dumpling suddenly flew in front of her. She smiled and pulled it back. It's not like I can't go there myself. You just have to stay here. What a joke. In front of so many crimson gold heavenly phoenixes, she stepped on Dumpling's back and flew. Did she have a death wish? When Dumpling heard that, it obediently went back. Chu Liwei suddenly took a deep breath and moved her feet slightly. She immediately followed Elder Yu. Under the gaze of countless pairs of eyes, their figures finally gradually disappeared behind the undulating mountain range. And when their figures really disappeared, the people who stayed on the spot slowly came back to their senses. That Shangguanyu just stayed here? And with that crimson gold heavenly phoenix, they didn't even cancel the contract? Yi Zhao looked around and said in a deep voice. What are you all still looking at? The ancestral worship ceremony is about to begin. Are you all ready? Hearing these words, the crowd dispersed in an instant. The few elders also bid farewell to Yi Zhao and prepared to return to continue preparing for the ancestral worship ceremony. Yi Zhao didn't say anything else and turned to return to the Shrine of Phoenix alone. The lively scene quickly quieted down. Yiran couldn't help but run toward Elder Yi Gong. Master, what exactly is going on? Digression. Urging the surrounding activities for the last time tomorrow at 12 o'clock. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1572. Elder Yi Gong's expression was cold. Follow me. The two of them returned to Elder Yi Gong's residence. After entering the forest and confirming that there was no one else around, Elder Yi Gong gradually slowed down and finally stopped beside a lake. Yiran followed behind. Master, Elder Yi Gong turned around and interrupted him. How's your cultivation recently? When can you break through? Yiran was stunned for a moment. He didn't expect that the first question would be this. After thinking for a moment he said, I should be able to succeed in half a month. Should? Elder Yi Gong narrowed his eyes and said coldly, There's no should. What I want is definitely. The ancestral worship ceremony is about to begin. Before that, you must break through as soon as possible. Iran was even more confused. His talent had always been at the top of the younger generation. He had always been the most outstanding one. As his master, Elder Yi Gong had always doted on him. He had never spoken to him in such a harsh tone. Iran thought for a moment. His master was clearly fine yesterday. Today he just went to the Phoenix Shrine and came out with a change of attitude. Could it be that something really happened there? Yes. Don't worry, master. I will definitely break through before the ancestral worship ceremony. I will definitely not let you down. Iran lowered his head and replied respectfully. Elder Yi Gong put his hands behind his back and stared at him with a heavy gaze. Iran, I'm not asking you this because I'm worried that you will be disappointed. It's because the ancestral worship ceremony this time is extremely important to you. If you can't get the first place, then the position of young master will not be yours. As he spoke, his voice softened a little. For this day, you have been cultivating diligently all these years and didn't dare to relax at all. I've seen all of this. It's also because of this that I can't let anyone threaten you. Threaten? Iran frowned slightly. Currently, the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan was not flourishing. He was already the top genius of the younger generation and was basically confident of getting that position. Who else could pose a threat to him? Suddenly, his expression changed as he suddenly realized something. Master, are you talking about? That new Crimson Gold Heavenly Phoenix is very likely to be a formidable opponent for you. Elder Yi Gong said resolutely. Seeing his confident expression, Iran felt that something was amiss. But it's just something that the 9-colored heavenly pheasant broke through and isn't worth mentioning. But on what basis could he compete with him? Elder Yi Gong's face turned ugly as he snorted coldly. Its origin is indeed not much, but its luck is too good, and its bloodline power is extremely strong. If that wasn't the case, do you think that Shangguan Yu would be able to walk out of the Phoenix Shrine unscathed today? Wasn't it all because of that crimson gold heavenly phoenix? Iran held his breath. He wasn't stupid. He couldn't be any clearer about the weight of Elder Yi Gong's words. To be able to make the patriarch relent and allow her to stay. Its talent. Is it really that powerful? Iran couldn't help but mutter. Elder Yi Gong's lips moved, but in the end he didn't reveal the truth. Before he came out, the patriarch had repeatedly instructed him not to reveal this news before the ancestral worship ceremony. He could only endure it. In short, its bloodline is definitely not inferior to yours. Although it's still young, it can't be underestimated. You just have to remember you can't let your guard down. As he spoke, he paused for a moment and comforted Iran. Of course, from the looks of it, it has a fatal flaw. Its contract with Shangguan Yu hasn't been rescinded. Really? Iran looked up with a face full of surprise. The patriarch had always been a man of his word, but this time, the matters here are more complicated. It's useless for you to know so much now. Elder Yi Gong didn't want to say more. He patted Iran's shoulder and said earnestly, as long as you can break through as soon as possible and obtain the first place in the ancestral worship ceremony, you don't have to worry about anything else. Iran was full of questions, but seeing that his master didn't seem to want to say anything, he suppressed his emotions and nodded seriously. Yes. Elder Yi Gong revealed a look of satisfaction. Very good. Have you comprehended the things that I've taught you before? Iran said. There are a few points that I still have doubts about. Let's hear them. The news that Shangguan Yu was going to stay in Fenghuang Valley for a month quickly spread throughout the entire Phoenix Godly Mountain. In an instant, the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan was in an uproar. All sorts of rumors about this matter also spread rapidly. Many people started to ask around to find out who this Shangguan Yu was. In just half a day, the name Shangguan Yu had become famous in the Phoenix Godly Mountain. However, Chu Liwei didn't care about this at all. She was bringing Dumpling and following Elder Yu to the legendary Fenghuang Valley. Here, this will be your place of residence for the time being. Elder Yu stood in the air and pointed to the front as he chuckled. This location is a little remote, but most people won't pass by here on their way back. It's quiet. Chu Liwei looked at the golden ball of light 10 steps ahead and smiled as she nodded in thanks. Thank you so much. Dumpling and I like this place very much. She didn't like noisy places. Moreover, this was someone else's territory. They only had a month and she hoped that they wouldn't be disturbed. This elder Yu seemed to be a good person. Chu Liwei had a good impression of him and her smile became more sincere. Elder Yu looked at her and then looked at Tuanzi and then he smiled. Even if he didn't consider Shangguanyu, he had to find a good place for Dumpling. Pure bloodline. How many years had it been since the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan appeared? This was a treasure. He took a few steps forward and gently covered the ball of light with his hand. Wang. There was a slight vibration. Then he retracted his hand and looked at Tu Liwei with a smile. It's good that you like it. I won't disturb you. I've left a trace of my aura on it. If there's any problem, just put your hand on it. I'll rush over as soon as possible. Chu Liwei thanked him again and watched as Elder Yu left. It wasn't until his figure had completely disappeared that she withdrew her gaze and turned to look at the ball of light. The ball of light wasn't big. From the outside it could only accommodate a dozen people at most. But Chu Liwei knew that there was another space inside. She looked up. There were mountains on both sides and there was a canyon in the middle. It was Fenghuang Valley. And inside there were several similar balls of light floating in the air. Those must be the resting places of the other Crimson Gold Sky Phoenixes. Chu Liue's lips curved up slightly when she sensed the hidden gazes, and she lightly patted Tuanzi. Dumpling, let's go. Digression. Tweet. Jiao at the beginning of the month, spoiled by the big boss after marriage. Su Shuang is a scumbag in love after marriage, a two-way crush. A Buddhist big boss versus a delicate and sweet wife. Tang Wan only had one mission when she married into the Jiang family, and that was to help a certain someone before he died. Carry on the family line and continue the family line. A certain someone was suspicious. Why does the gentle and shy girl seem to be a different person at night? Tang Wan thought, if I don't hurry up, I'm afraid he doesn't have much time left. But the child was born a month old and a year old. Tang Wan was ready to be a widow. Why wasn't he dead yet? Later, Jiang Wuya asked her in a low voice, I heard that you look forward to my death every day. Do you want to wait until I die? Chapter 1573. There was a small space inside the ball of light. Mountains rose and fell and streams glowing with reddish gold light gurgled through the forest. It was lush and full of vitality. The rich energy of heaven and earth filled it, making people feel relaxed and happy. Chu Liwei couldn't help but praise. As expected of the ancient divine beasts, they have a deep foundation. This cultivation environment alone isn't much better than the outside world. Even Lingxiao College and Yuntian Tower were slightly inferior to this place. Tuanzi blinked her eyes curiously and looked around. Chu Liwei chuckled. This will be your territory from now on. You can look at it however you want. Dumpling turned its head and rubbed against her face intimately. The most important thing now is to help you transform into a human as soon as possible. Hearing this, Dumpling's body stiffened slightly. Chu Liwei picked it up. By the way, I haven't asked you before. What age does the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan have to transform into a human under normal circumstances? Dumpling looked conflicted. Chu Liwei raised her eyebrows slightly. After a long pause, Dumpling's voice came hesitantly from the bottom of her heart. 100 years old. The smile on Chu Liue's face suddenly froze. There was a dead silence all around. After a while, Chu Liue spoke with difficulty. How much? Tuanzi wailed and its small head drooped down weakly. I didn't agree to it before. However, Chu Liue didn't give it a chance to interrupt and directly agreed to Yi Zhao's request. It's going to be difficult to solve this problem now. The corner of Chu Liue's eyes twitched violently. No wonder Yi Zhao was suddenly willing to relent. It turns out, she knew that this matter would be difficult, but she didn't expect it to be a bottomless pit. After a long pause, Chu Liue asked, Why didn't you tell me before? Dumpling flapped its little wings. You didn't ask. At that time when it saw how confident she was, it thought that she must know and was confident that she could do it. Who knew? Chu Liwei rubbed his glabella, feeling a headache coming on. Dumpling looked up at her cautiously. One man and one beast stared at each other. Is there any other way? Chu Liwei thought about it carefully. Other than the age restriction, what was more important was the level of strength. Sure enough, hearing this, Tuanzi nodded obediently. As long as I can successfully open 3 meridians, I will be able to take human form. Chu Liyue was a little confused. Opening 3 meridians? Dumpling explained. Although we are all crimson gold heavenly phoenixes, our strengths are different. Generally speaking, every breakthrough is considered opening 1 meridian. Chu Liyue nodded and looked Dumpling up and down. Then you are now 1 meridian? Dumpling answered honestly. Chu Liyue wasn't surprised by this result. After all, Dumpling had just broken through a few months ago. It was normal for her to be at the level of 1 meridian. From 1 meridian to 3 meridians, it shouldn't be too difficult, right? Chu Liyue asked curiously. Then do you know how many meridians your clan leader has opened? Dumpling thought for a while and said, clan leader should have opened 7 meridians. Amazing! Chu Liyue exclaimed in his heart. Dumpling nodded in agreement. Yes, except for the clan leader who opened 7 meridians, the others only opened 6 meridians. The others? Chu Liyue reacted. You mean, the 5 elders? Tuanzi fluttered its wings and said carelessly, that's right. Yes. Other than them, the rest are even lower in level. There are very few who have opened 5 meridians. Needless to say, it was talking about those who had surrounded the Phoenix Shrine. A white light suddenly flashed in Chu Liyue's mind. Then she leaned closer to Dumpling and stared at its eyes seriously. Dumpling didn't understand. Chu Liyue held her breath, softened her voice and asked, Dumpling, how did you know their level? Dumpling was stunned and said blankly, I knew it with one look. Wasn't that simple? Chu Liyue's emotions surged. 4 human cultivators, low-level cultivators, couldn't see the specific level of people who were stronger than them. Dumpling had only opened 1 meridian. Logically speaking, it should be the lowest level existence in the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. How did it see so much? Or, was the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan different from humans? Because they had the same bloodline, it could directly sense this? Chu Liyue's heart was filled with doubts. If it was anyone else it would be fine, but Yizhao was the clan leader. With such a high and mighty identity, how could he allow others to see through his true strength? No matter how she thought about it, it didn't seem right. She stared at Dumpling again. It was blinking at her with an innocent face. Chu Liyue's thoughts turned. After thinking for a long time, she said, Dumpling will basically stay here for this period of time. But if you go out later, don't mention this to anyone else. Dumpling didn't know what she was thinking in her heart. It could only obediently agree. Chu Liyue raised her eyes and looked around. Let me think, how are you going to open the remaining 2 meridians in this month's time? Night fell. The huge curtain of night enveloped the wilderness. Inside the Phoenix Shrine, it was brightly lit. A faint glow shone through the window. It was sacred and noble, unapproachable. Inside the main hall it was silent. A lone figure stood there. It was Yizhao. He had been standing in this position for a long time since the evening. He was looking at the wall in front of him. On it there was a huge mural painted with thick ink and heavy colors. Between the chaotic heaven and earth, a reddish gold figure was spreading its wings, passing through the sea of clouds and flying out. The feathers on its body were visible, almost as if they were real. Just by looking like this, one could feel the powerful aura that almost broke through the wall. This was the ancestor of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. Unfortunately, its eyes were pitch black, as if they had been gouged out by something. Without its eyes, it seemed to have lost its soul, causing it to be helplessly bound within this cold wall. Ancestor, the purest bloodline has finally appeared again. I wonder if this time can... Knock knock. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. Clan leader EU requests an audience. Yizhao came back to his senses. Come in. As he spoke, he turned around and looked at the person who came in. At this moment, the expression on his face had returned to its usual indifference and calmness. Elder EU walked in. His gaze subconsciously swept past the huge mural and he sighed in his heart. Clan leader, are you looking at the ancestor again? You're always like this, it's very tiring. Yizhao's expression was indifferent. The ancestral worship ceremony is around the corner, and a new bloodline has returned. I should make a trip. Elder EU knew that it was useless to persuade him, so he didn't dwell on it for too long. Don't worry, I've already made arrangements for Shangguan Yu and Dumpling. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1574. Yizhao nodded. Of course I'm not worried about you. Yu smiled. Actually, I thought you would hand them over to me directly today. I didn't expect you to call Ran first. Yizhao said indifferently. He won't do it anyway. If I pass them to you it won't arouse suspicion. Yigong had always been suspicious. If he did it directly he would be suspicious again. It was good that he and Ran had rejected it this time. Ran has always been smart. Unfortunately he was too smart for his own good. Elder Yu's smile faded and he shook his head. At this moment he didn't look like his usual impulsive self. He was clearly a cunning old fox. Like master, like disciple. Yizhao knew what kind of people they were, so he naturally knew the most effective way to deal with them. Elder Yu lowered his head slightly. You've always been good at strategizing. Today's matter is actually under your control. Yizhao raised his hand. No. I didn't want to keep that Shangguan Yu in the beginning. Because he really didn't expect this woman to be so hooligan. Besides, Dumpling's bloodline is much better than I expected. At this point Yizhao's face finally showed a hint of satisfaction. It's not a waste of effort. When he first knew that a crimson gold heavenly phoenix had appeared in Lingxiao College, he didn't pay much attention. It was only because he knew that it had formed a contract with a human that he wanted to call it back as soon as possible. However, after hearing some things he vaguely felt that this crimson gold heavenly phoenix seemed to be a little unusual. Seeing it today it was indeed true. Elder Yu also smiled. Isn't that so? The purest bloodline hasn't appeared in our clan for a long time. It really came at the right time for us now. Unfortunately it's still too young. Yizhao shook his head. If it can't take human form, it can't participate in the ancestral worship ceremony. Elder Yu was shocked and suddenly looked up. You wanted to participate in the ancestral worship ceremony? With Dumpling's age he thought that the patriarch would wait for the next time. Suddenly something flashed through his mind. Is this the reason why you agreed to work for Shangguan Yu? Yizhao turned around and looked at the mural. Since she has the guts to accept this bet, let's see if she has the ability. Yuntian Tower. Rong Xiu worked day and night without stopping, rushing back from Lingxiao College. As soon as he stepped into the barrier he saw Yanqing waiting with a group of people. Seeing Rong Xiu, Yanqing immediately led her people to salute him. Greetings, Your Highness. Rong Xiu raised his hand indicating for them to get up. As he rushed towards Upsetting Peak he asked, What's the situation at the Yuntian Tower recently? Yanqing followed closely behind with a grim expression. Reporting to Master, all of the elders and the leaders of the 13 clans have gathered in the Ethereal Hall. 36 respected Elder Ming is in charge of the situation, but the situation isn't optimistic. Rong Xiu narrowed his eyes and his scarlet lips curled up coldly. He seemed to be smiling but it didn't reach the corners of his eyes. They sure are fast. The last time the Yuntian Tower was so lively was when I took over the throne. That was a few years ago. But this time, Bailey June was unconscious and these people couldn't sit still anymore. He had rushed back as soon as he received the news from Lingxiao College. And these people were even faster than him. Where's the patriarch now? Rong Xiu asked. Yanqing's expression was grim. The sacrificial god hall. After the incident he knew that things were bad, so he immediately brought Bailey June to the sacrificial god hall and set up heavy guards to watch over him. He was worried that someone would do something to him. Rong Xiu nodded lightly. Well done. As long as Bailey June was still in their hands, the matter would be much easier to resolve. After saying those words Rong Xiu's figure flashed, and he rushed towards Upsetting Peak at an even faster speed. The atmosphere in the solemn ethereal hall was extremely tense. The respected elders of the Yuntian Tower were seated on two sides. The patriarchs of the 28 divisions and the others were seated at a slightly lower position. These dozens of people could be said to be the ones with the highest standing in the Yuntian Tower. At this moment almost all of them were gathered here. Clearly they were here for the matter regarding Bailey June. In the silent atmosphere, respected Elder Yu Jing finally couldn't hold himself back anymore and broke the silence. It has been so long but His Highness isn't back yet. Could it be that he was delayed on the way back? 36 respected Elder Ming sipped a mouthful of tea and said calmly, Lingxiao College is extremely far away from the Yuntian Tower, so it's natural that he couldn't be like all of you here, arriving in the blink of an eye after hearing the news. The faces of some people warped. Respected Elder Yu Jing chuckled. You're right. It's a long journey to return from the Yuntian Tower. Besides, Lingxiao College has been facing a lot of trouble recently, so it's normal for His Highness to be delayed. This is especially so since our new consort is here as well. There wasn't anything wrong with those words, but those present were all intelligent people. How could they not hear the sarcasm in those words? Speaking of which, this consort is really incredible. We all thought that she was still in the sacrificial god hall, but who knew that she had already changed her appearance and secretly went to Lingxiao College. Her reputation has been rising recently. Respected Elder Tong Chuan chuckled and said calmly, this consort is really incredible. This princess consort is very capable. It's no wonder that His Highness, the chosen saint, is interested in her. At this moment, a cold and deep voice suddenly sounded from outside the hall. My consort is naturally unparalleled in the world. Digression. I'm sorry, everyone. The internet connection isn't good on the high-speed rail. I'll continue this afternoon. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from LoveNet. Chapter 1575. Upon hearing the voice, everyone in the ethereal hall was startled and turned to look. They saw a tall figure walking over against the light. He was dressed in a black brocade robe and his handsome face was half lit and half dark. As he walked, the corner of his robe fluttered in the wind, bringing with it an unapproachable aura of nobility. His deep eyes were like an ancient well. They looked calm on the surface, but in reality, there were surging undercurrents, making it hard to fathom. When he stepped into the hall, a faint bloody aura silently spread out. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. This man would only have such an aura after killing someone or before he was about to go on a killing spree. 36 Esteemed Elder Ming heaved a sigh of relief and took the lead to welcome him. Welcome back, Saint. Among everyone present, his status was the highest. Seeing him greet him respectfully, everyone finally recovered from their shock and bowed as well. Rongxiu walked straight ahead. In the quiet hall, only his footsteps were exceptionally clear. Every step he took felt like he was stepping on everyone's hearts. He clearly didn't say anything. Just by walking past everyone, he naturally brought about an indescribable pressure. Rongxiu walked to the seat of honor, lifted his robe and sat down. His gaze swept across the hall. The surroundings became even quieter. Without his permission, no one dared to stand up on their own. They could only awkwardly maintain their bowing posture. After a long while, Rongxiu spoke. Everyone, you may dispense with the formalities. Only then did everyone sit down. However, the atmosphere in the hall was already very different from before. 36 Esteemed Elder Ming leaned against the back of his chair leisurely. He raised his eyelids and sneered coldly in his heart. All of them were extremely arrogant. They even dared to mock the saint and princess consort, causing him to think that they were going to rebel right in front of him. Yet the moment Rongxiu arrived, before he could say anything, these people had already retreated. They didn't even dare to let out a fart. He had really overestimated them. Rongxiu's gaze finally landed on respected Elder Tong Chuan and respected Elder Yu Jing. His crimson lips curved up slightly as he seemingly smiled. Respected elders have always had high standards, but today you are praising you so generously. Presumably you are very satisfied with her. The faces of revered Elder Tong Chuan and the others instantly turned ugly. How was that a compliment? He was clearly mocking him. Sarcasm. But she couldn't say that in front of Rongxiu. After a moment of stalemate, Elder Tong Chuan turned his face away and said indifferently, the princess consort was personally handpicked by His Highness the Holy Sun, so she's naturally different from the rest. Rongxiu nodded and said with a smile. It's rare that revered Elder Tong Chuan shares the same opinion as I. Elder Tong Chuan choked and didn't want to speak anymore. 36 Respected Elder Ming looked outside the door for a while and asked doubtfully, Your Highness, the princess consort didn't come back with you? Rongxiu nodded with an indifferent expression. The head of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan personally wrote a letter to invite her to the Divine Phoenix Mountain, so she didn't come back with I. As his voice fell, everyone uncontrollably sucked in a breath of cold air. The Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan was extremely noble and the head of the clan was famous for being arrogant. He didn't even take a venerable god expert seriously. Why did he personally write a letter to the head of the Shangguanyu? That's right. She seems to have contracted with a crimson gold sky phoenix. Respected Elder Tong Chuan suddenly sneered. The Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan has never interacted with the human race and views the contract with the human race as a huge stain. Your Highness, aren't you worried at all that the princess consort has passed away? This didn't seem like a good thing. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows slightly. I understand what respected Elder Tong Chuan means. However, you're worrying too much. If the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan really wants to cause trouble for you, they can just go to her directly like Mao Yao. Isn't it unnecessary to write a letter to invite her? Respected Elder Tong Chuan was stunned. He felt that something was wrong but he couldn't refute it. Many people secretly exchanged glances. Actually, the Holy Sun's words weren't without reason. According to the usual temper of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan, if they really wanted to cause trouble for the Shangguanyu, they wouldn't go through so much trouble. Could it be that the princess consort was really going to the Shangguanyu as a guest? The Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan rarely interferes with the affairs of the human race in the Divine Ruins world. This time they took the initiative to invite the princess consort over. Who knows, they might be able to form good karma. 36 Respected Elder Ming stroked his beard and slowly praised. Everyone was skeptical but they didn't dare to ask. If it was in the past they would definitely think that this was all fake. However, it was different now. During this period of time the news about the Lingxiao College had spread like wildfire. The name Shangguanyu had also spread throughout the Divine Ruins world. Not only was she an all-rounder, but she had also broken through to the high deity level at such a young age. Other than that, her true identity was finally revealed to everyone. Not only was she the descendant of the weapon-refining Venerable Shangguan Jing, but she was also the disciple of the Dean of Lingxiao College, Nansu Huai. A few months ago, everyone still looked down on her. Now they only felt that their faces were hurting. Who knew what other trump cards the Princess of Shangguanyu was hiding? What kind of heaven-defying methods did she have? Perhaps the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan was really giving her face. It was hard to say. Rong Xiu's gaze lingered on the dozen or so family heads for a moment. He said calmly, will handle her own matters. As for everyone, I rushed back as soon as I received the news. I didn't expect everyone to arrive even earlier. Some people were already sweating. Elder Yu Jingzuan's eyes flickered as he explained. They were also worried about the clan head, so they rushed over. Rong Xiu leaned back and tapped his knuckles on the armrest twice before he smiled faintly. I thought that everyone was waiting for I to come back and give an explanation. Everyone was speechless. Actually, that was their plan all along. However, since Rong Xiu had taken the initiative to strike first, they couldn't say anything. After a long while, Elder Tong Chuan finally spoke up. How would we dare to investigate your highness's actions? It's just that the clan head has been unconscious ever since she returned from Lingxiao College. And the only one who knew more about what happened at that time was his highness. Therefore, we only hope that your highness can come back to take charge of the situation and thoroughly investigate what happened. Her words were tactful, but she was actually pushing all the blame to Rong Xiu without batting an eyelid. Unfortunately, Rong Xiu wasn't someone who would be manipulated by others. He nodded his head in agreement. Elder Tong Chuan's words are reasonable. I rushed back because I had the same thoughts. In fact, I had already gone to the sacrificial god hall to visit the clan head. Now that I've seen it, I've indeed found a problem. Rong Xiu paused for a moment before his gaze landed on Elder Yu Jingzuan. Elder Yu Jingzuan, why do I sense your aura in the clan head's body? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1576. Elder Yu Jingzuan was shocked and raised his head. He had clearly erased all traces. How could he still be discovered? Meeting Rong Xiu's cold, knife-like eyes, he instantly felt a chill down his spine. An indescribable fear surged from the depths of his heart. I didn't. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows slightly. Elder Yu Jingzuan, are you saying that I have wronged you? Elder Yu Jingzuan forced himself to calm down. Your Highness might have mistaken me for someone else. It's not I's first day knowing you. How could I have mistaken you for someone else? Rong Xiu interrupted him and asked. Elder Yu Jingzuan choked and couldn't say anything else. No one spoke in the hall. The air was stagnant. Rong Xiu asked slowly. Before I came back, I received news that the patriarch had returned from Fangzhou City and returned to his own place. He didn't see anyone. Then where did the aura in his body come from? Elder Yu Jingzuan's face gradually paled. I came back to investigate this matter. Then let's start with you, Elder Yu Jingzuan. Phoenix God Mountain. Chu Luiyue and Dumpling sat facing each other beside a golden stream. A gentle breeze blew and the leaves swayed, casting mottled shadows on the ground. Dumpling, do you really not feel the signs of opening your second meridian? Chu Luiyue stared at Dumpling and asked cautiously. Dumpling shook her head. Sigh. I knew it. Chu Luiyue sighed deeply and looked at Dumpling in front of her. He was very worried. 3 days had already passed. During this time she had tried all kinds of methods, but Dumpling still had no intention of continuing to break through. It didn't even have the slightest feeling. Chu Luiyue asked it countless times but the answer was always the same. Bang. Chu Luiyue slumped back. Fluffy leaves flew into the air. I should have realized that it's not that simple. Dumpling broke through from the red-tailed red phoenix to the crimson-gold heavenly phoenix. How many months had it been? It was unrealistic for it to break through again in the blink of an eye. According to Dumpling, ordinary crimson-gold heavenly phoenixes would only have the chance to open 3 meridians when they were 100 years old. How old was it now? Wanting to open 3 meridians was no different from wishful thinking. Dumpling lowered her head, looking downcast. As expected, it was because it was too useless. If it could directly open 3 meridians, she wouldn't have such a headache and wouldn't have to be locked in here with it, unable to leave. The more Dumpling thought about it, the more she blamed herself. Her head was almost buried in the feathers on her chest. Sensing its mood, Chu Luiyue didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He sat up again and pulled it over. It's not your problem. I was too impulsive before. I should have done my homework before agreeing. Suddenly her eyes lit up. Dumpling, if you trigger Tianlei, can it help you break through? Previously at Thousand Wine Mountain, Dumpling had activated its bloodline and broken through to become a crimson-gold heavenly phoenix because it had devoured the power of Tianlei. She didn't know if this trick would still work now. Dumpling tilted its head, looking confused. Actually, it wasn't very sure either. Chu Luiyue made up her mind. I'll only know after I try. She looked up at the sky. This was a special space within the light ball, so the sky was also a faint crimson color. Only at the edge of the field there was a bright golden light. With such rich heaven and earth energy, I should be able to successfully trigger Tianlei, right? Chu Luiyue thought of this and flew to the top of the mountain. There were many ways to trigger Tianlei, but the most convenient and fastest way was naturally to refine weapons. It just so happened that after she recovered her memories, she hadn't tested her current level yet. She could take this opportunity to take a look. Chu Luiyue lowered her eyes and looked at her wrist. With a thought, a light pink peach blossom mark slowly appeared. This thing was given to her by 36 respected Elder Ming. It could teleport silently and wouldn't cause any energy fluctuations. Now that she had regained her high god state, this thing seemed a little useless. However, if she could raise its level and make it teleport further, it would be good. She did as she said. Chu Luiyue took out the star stone, jumped on it and sat cross-legged. Tuanzi squatted beside her and looked at her eagerly. Chu Luiyue held her breath and focused. The next moment her wrist gently turned. Instantly light flickered. A bracelet slowly appeared on her wrist. It was a bracelet made of black rattan as thick as a thumb, with a small light pink peach blossom blooming on it. The bracelet automatically fell off and quietly floated in front of her. There was a faint luster on it, quiet and reserved. And that peach blossom seemed to be swaying with the wind, full of vitality and very moving. She didn't know if she could succeed this time. Chu Luiyue thought to herself as she started to activate the elemental energy in her body. Time passed by slowly. However, on the mountain peak it was still peaceful. Chu Luiyue opened her eyes and looked up. The sky was bright and cloudless. There was no movement at all. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but furrow her brows. She really couldn't do it here. Inside this light ball was a special area in Fenghuang Valley, and it was full of natural energy. It was almost impossible for her to mobilize the energy in this area and trigger Tianlei with her own strength. Even if she was a high god now, compared to an ancient divine beast like the crimson gold sky phoenix, it was still not enough. Chu Luiyue rested her chin on her hand and fell into deep thought again. Go out. That didn't seem right. In the crimson gold sky phoenix clan, there were countless pairs of eyes staring at her and Dumpling, waiting to see them make a fool of themselves. Once they left this place, no one knew what would happen outside. She didn't think that they would be on her side. But if she continued to stay here, what could she do to mobilize the natural energy? Suddenly her brows twitched. Dumpling looked at Chu Luiyue blankly. Her expression was strange. She seemed excited and hesitant at the same time. After a while, it finally saw Chu Luiyue clench her fist as if she had made up her mind. Let's do it. Before Dumpling could react, she saw something appear in Chu Luiyue's palm. It was a thumb-sized shuttle-like seed. Its entire body was crimson, sparkling and translucent. At this moment, a small leaf had sprouted from it. It was tender and cute. Dumpling's eyes widened and she hurriedly retreated. This. Why did she take this out? At this moment an idea popped up in Chu Luiyue's mind. That young and tender leaf swayed gently. Whoosh. The natural energy swept over. At the same time in Fenghuang Valley a strong wind blew. Within Fenghuang Valley, Elder Yu, who had been resting, rushed out with a face full of shock. When he saw the heaven and earth energy tide in the sky, he was stunned. What is this? Digression. It would probably be night by the time they reached home. Tomorrow at 12 p.m. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1577. The rest of the people in Fenghuang Valley sensed the commotion and rushed out. What happened? What happened? Why is the heaven and earth energy suddenly raging? Everyone was at a loss. In the end they all looked up at the sky. When they saw the surging tide of energy they were all shocked. Although Fenghuang Valley was filled with heaven and earth energy, it had always been peaceful. Such a situation had never happened before. But now, wait, the energy seems to be flowing in that direction. Suddenly, someone exclaimed in a low voice. Everyone looked in the direction he was pointing at. Did something happen over there? I'm not sure. Isn't that place very secluded? Why is it happening all of a sudden? However, when Elder Yu saw the direction in which the energy tide was surging, he was shocked. Wasn't that where Shangguan Yu and Dumpling were? Due to various reasons, he had arranged for them to be in a secluded area. Over there, besides them, there was no one else. Everyone stay where you are. Don't move. Elder Yu gave the order and dashed in the direction of the battle. Although the rest were curious, they did not dare to disobey his order and could only wait obediently. Elder Yu's figure quickly disappeared into the distance. The crowd started to discuss again. The commotion in the sky showed no signs of stopping. Instead it became even more intense. The heaven and earth energy seemed to be easily controlled by an invisible hand and rushed in from all directions. Even though they were standing below, they could still feel the terrifying pressure. At that moment another person walked out of the ball of light. His expression was extremely ugly, and his eyes seemed to be burning with the flames of anger. It was Iran. He suppressed the anger in his heart and raised his head to take a look. Soon after he asked coldly, "What's going on?" The people beside him saw that his expression was not right and did not dare to ask further. They only explained, "We're not sure. Something seems to have happened over there. Elder Yu just went over." As he spoke he even raised his hand and pointed. Iran looked in that direction and laughed coldly. "I've heard that Shangguan Yu is a troublemaker. Back in Lingxiao College they were very arrogant and caused a lot of trouble. I didn't expect that even after coming here, you still can't change your nature." After his reminder, everyone finally remembered that the people on the other side were none other than Shangguan Yu and Dumpling, who had been here for a few days. If it really causes any accidents, that crimson gold heavenly phoenix won't be able to escape responsibility. Iran was furious. Originally he was peacefully cultivating. But after receiving some guidance from his master he finally felt a little bit of a breakthrough. But at this moment Fenghuang Valley was in chaos, interrupting his cultivation. How could he not be angry? There wasn't much time left until the ancestral worship ceremony. He had to make the best use of his time to break through. After today's incident, all their previous efforts had been wasted. Seeing that he was in a bad mood, no one dared to ask about it in detail. They only echoed his words. Elder Yu came to the light sphere where Tu Luiwei and Dumpling were. As soon as he got close, he felt a shocking pressure. His pupils shrank. Didn't Shangguan Yu just become a high deity? Logically speaking, such a level of strength shouldn't be able to cause such a huge commotion, right? Just as he was about to raise his hand, the sky suddenly darkened. Elder Yu paused and raised his head. He saw that the originally clear sky was now filled with dark clouds and the wind was howling. A silvery bolt of heavenly lightning slithered through the clouds like a silver snake. Tianlei. Elder Yu suddenly realized something and his eyes widened slightly. Realizing the severity of the situation, he didn't hesitate. He pressed his hand on the light sphere and stepped in. The moment he stepped in, Elder Yu was almost blown away by the strong wind. He quickly steadied himself and looked in front of him. Then he saw Shangguan Yu sitting cross-legged on top of the mountain. Dumpling was small and squatting beside her. At this moment, an energy vortex had already formed above their heads, directly connecting to the golden ball of light barrier. The commotion outside was indeed caused by them. High deity. Elder Yu instinctively opened his mouth. Then he suddenly saw the bracelet hanging in front of Tu Liwei, and quickly shut his mouth. Is she refining a weapon? Although he was a crimson gold celestial phoenix, he still knew some things about the human race. When refining a weapon, the requirements for the surrounding environment were extremely high, and they couldn't be disturbed. However, at this moment, the woman suddenly raised her head and looked over. When she saw that it was Elder Yu, a bright smile bloomed on her face. Elder Yu was a little confused. You're not refining a weapon? I am. But I'm still in the preparation stage. Chu Luiwei looked up. I think it'll take a while. Although the Tu Tian baby could easily mobilize the energy of heaven and earth, it would still take a while to attract enough Tianlei. As she spoke, she looked at Elder Yu with a smile. Why are you here? Elder Yu's eyelids twitched. Why am I here? She actually asked me why I'm here. Seeing that Chu Luiwei was asking sincerely, Elder Yu calmed the fluctuations in his heart and said, You've caused quite a commotion. You've caused quite a ruckus. The natural energies outside are starting to go berserk. Chu Luiwei nodded. I know. Wasn't this the reason why she had worked so hard? Elder Yu didn't know how to respond for a moment and fell into a long silence. Chu Luiwei blinked. Only then did she understand why he was here. Did it affect everyone? I just wanted to attract Tianlei. It shouldn't affect others, right? Elder Yu was even more speechless. Because he thought about it carefully. Although all of this happened suddenly, it did not seem to have affected them much. At most, it could be considered a shock. As for hurting or hindering anyone, it didn't seem to be the case. If that was the case, it would be even more difficult for him to reprimand her. But this is indeed quite a big commotion. Elder Yu thought for a moment and said hesitantly, If it's not something very important then. To be honest with you, I'm not actually here to refine weapons. I'm here to help Dumpling. Chu Liwei shrugged and smiled helplessly. As you know, we only have a month. Elder Yu instantly understood and glanced at Tuanzi who was beside him. I see. They summoned Tianlei to try to help Dumpling break through. This is also a method. If it were anyone else, he would definitely think that this was wishful thinking. However, Dumpling has the purest bloodline. Perhaps. Elder Yu opened his mouth. Then you guys go ahead. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1578. When Elder Yu came out of the ball of light, he immediately sensed countless gazes on him. Elder Yu. Iran was the first to welcome him. He looked at his expression but could not see anything wrong. Did Shangguan Yu cause trouble again? Although the crowd did not speak, their expressions showed that they wanted to ask the same question. Elder Yu frowned. No. It's just a small misunderstanding. It's just a small misunderstanding. Don't worry, everyone can go back and rest. Iran was stunned. Small misunderstanding? The sky above Fenghuang Valley was still gloomy. Wind and thunder were roaring. You call this a small misunderstanding? Yiran could not help but raise his voice. Elder, this has never happened in Fenghuang Valley. Everyone is worried. Are you not worried at all? Elder Yiran suddenly chuckled. Yiran, are you doubting me? Yiran was shocked and quickly lowered his head. Yiran wouldn't dare. Shangguanyu is refining weapons inside. That's what caused this commotion. Everyone, don't worry. Elder Yu looked around. Since when did the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan become so cowardly? Although he was smiling, his words caused the expressions of the surrounding people to change instantly. These words were simply pointing at the nose and scolding. After a while, someone argued. Elder, you misunderstood. We're not afraid. We're just surprised by the sudden commotion. As soon as he said this, everyone agreed. Yes. We just didn't expect it. No human has come here before, right? Yes. To be honest, other than the loud noise, it didn't affect us much. Only then did Elder Yu nod. As long as it doesn't ruin our reputation. Don't forget that when you're looking at her, she's looking at you too. If we embarrass ourselves in front of the human race, that's really... Hearing this, everyone hurriedly nodded in agreement. Only Yiran was sullen. No impact, of course. When he returned this time, he would have to spend a lot of effort to find that door again. However, he could not say these words in front of everyone. He could only swallow it. Alright, let's disperse. Elder Yu waved his hand. The crowd quickly dispersed. Yiran had just turned around when he turned back unwillingly. Elder, you should be careful of that Shangguanyu. He had heard that she had caused a lot of trouble in the past. She did something out of line again. The ancestral worship ceremony was about to begin. That would not be good. Elder Yu glanced at him with a faint smile. Those who didn't know better would think that Yiran was the elder instead. Yiran felt a little guilty under his stare, and his voice gradually became softer. Only then did Elder Yu calmly reply. These matters will be handled by the patriarch and the elders. You don't have to worry so much. Just focus on your cultivation. Yiran knew that he had made a slip of the tongue. His heart beat wildly and his face turned green and white. He hurriedly responded and turned to leave. Elder Yu stared at his back for a while before shaking his head. He was originally a good seedling, but unfortunately he was narrow-minded and too ambitious. It was not a good thing to be too smart. Elder Yu turned back to look at the light ball. He retreated a little and began to watch over it. This matter was of great importance and involved Dumpling. Naturally, he had to be careful. The energy tide in Fenghuang Valley surged for a full 7 days. Everyone was shocked at the beginning, but they gradually learned to accept it. In the end, they were almost used to it. Just as Elder Yu had said at the beginning, although the commotion was not small, it did not cause too much trouble for them. After each of them strengthened the light ball's boundary, there was basically no trouble. During these days, Elder Yu had pushed aside all other matters and had been watching over it patiently. Other than the continuous surging tide, everything seemed to have returned to normal. But to some people that was not the case. Bang! Yiran punched the stone wall in front of him fiercely. A crack began to spread from his fist. Intense pain came from his hand. But at this moment, Yiran was not in the mood to care about this. He looked up in annoyance. The boundary that originally glowed with reddish gold light seemed to be shrouded in a layer of shadow. He could vaguely hear the whistling of the wind. The commotion outside was still ongoing. It had been so many days. It still had not stopped. There was no end to it. Because of this, he had been unable to calm down for the past few days. The progress of his cultivation had been delayed again and again. He was so annoyed that he wanted to rush out and order Shangguanyu and the reddish gold sky phoenix to get out. But he could not. The more he delayed, the more anxious he became, and the less he was in the mood to cultivate. He had fallen into a vicious cycle. Actually, the commotion was basically negligible. Especially since Yiran's status in the clan was not low. His light ball was of a higher level than many of his peers. The main reason he was like this was because of himself. Cultivation could not be rushed. But he was eager for quick success and wanted to break through immediately. This was not good. Even if he cultivated in a completely sealed and quiet space, the result would still be the same. Unfortunately, he couldn't understand these principles, so he subconsciously pushed the blame onto others. Yiran closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The words that his master had said to him earlier kept appearing in his mind. That reddish gold sky phoenix. Could it really be a threat to him? Boom. At this moment, a loud boom was heard. Iran was shocked and immediately stepped out of the light ball boundary. In Fenghuang Valley, the wind was still howling and the clouds were rolling. A bright and dazzling light suddenly flashed and fell from the sky. It was the Tianlei that had been summoned earlier. After 7 days of brewing, over 100 bolts of heavenly lightning had accumulated in the sky. And now they finally fell. Their target, the light ball in the depths of Fenghuang Valley. Other than Iran, a few others came out after hearing the commotion. They were all curious and shocked at the scene. At this moment, a crack suddenly appeared at the top of the light ball. Several bolts of heavenly lightning struck down one after another. Boom boom boom. Digression, 6 p.m. Well, also the list of friends is at the top of the comment section. Please join the group as soon as possible. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from LoveNet. Chapter 1579. Countless bolts of lightning struck the ball of light one after another and quickly disappeared. Everyone looked from afar and could only see the dazzling light. It was so dazzling that they could not open their eyes. Amidst the commotion, someone could not help but mutter softly. What kind of divine artifact is Shangguanyu refining? It can actually summon so many Tianlei? No one knew. Elder Yu was guarding at the side and no one could get close. Naturally, no one knew what was going on inside. Thus, everyone could only watch from afar as the ball of light was gradually bathed in a sea of lightning. Elder Yu quickly made his move. A reddish-gold flame surged out from his sleeve. In the blink of an eye, it formed a huge barrier that enveloped the space within a radius of dozens of kilometers. Countless lightning bolts splashed on it, causing it to shake violently. It seemed like it would break at any moment. Elder Yu frowned and a trace of seriousness appeared on his face. It was naturally difficult to cause such a commotion with just Shangguanyu. It was highly likely that she had used the two Tian baby. Some time ago, what had happened in the Spiritual Firmament Academy had spread like wildfire throughout the entire Divine Ruins world. The most talked about topic was Shangguanyu's true identity, as well as her many trump cards. Needless to say, the Heavenly Square Cauldron, the Supremacy Divine Artifact, and the most shocking thing was that she actually had a 2 Tian baby. Under normal circumstances, only supremacy experts could control a 2 Tian baby. However, Shangguanyu broke this rule. In fact, too many similar things had happened to her, so much so that everyone was starting to feel numb. In the end, only one conclusion could be reached. Shangguanyu could not be judged by normal standards. It was the same this time. How did a supremacy expert control a 2 Tian baby? Elder Yu muttered to himself, his heart full of doubts. At this moment, the sound of something breaking through the air could be heard from afar. He sensed something and quickly turned around to take a look. The person who came was none other than Yi Gong. Before he arrived, he saw the Tianlei that filled the sky and the rumbling Fenghuang mountain. His expression was extremely ugly. Are they trying to rebel against the heavens? In the past 10 days, Elder Yi Gong had been busy preparing for the ancestral worship ceremony, so he didn't know the situation here. He was only alarmed by the heavenly anomaly today and the Tianlei riots. When he rushed over, he didn't expect to see such a scene. What the hell is going on? Elder Yi Gong's voice was filled with suppressed anger. You don't have to worry, First Elder. It's just that Shangguanyu is currently refining weapons which triggered Tianlei. Elder Yu chuckled as he stepped forward. It's just a small matter. Small matter. Elder Yi Gong immediately raised his eyebrows. He immediately laughed coldly and pointed to the front. Fenghuang Valley is in such a mess and you say it's a small matter. It's not like I haven't seen humans refine artifacts before. It's impossible for them to cause such a huge commotion. There's clearly something fishy going on here. Where's Shangguanyu? Let her out. Elder Yu was still smiling, but he seemed to be in a difficult position. This isn't very appropriate. She's refining weapons at a crucial moment. If we force her out now, isn't that? Yu, if something really happens, can you bear the responsibility? Elder Yi Gong glanced at him coldly. The threat in his words was self-evident. He could tell that Yu's attitude towards Shangguanyu and Dumpling wasn't bad. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so protective of them at this time. Elder Yu paused for a moment. After that, he took a step back and moved aside. Then, We'll do as first elder says. Elder Yi Gong looked at him meaningfully then stepped forward. Although the Tianlei was extremely powerful, it wasn't fatal to him who had already opened 6 meridians. Elder Yi Gong stared at the glowing silver ball, and a murderous intent flashed across his eyes. He didn't know how to stop them, but he didn't expect them to be the first to cause trouble. Creating such a commotion in Phoenix Mountain was equivalent to directly taking their lives. No one could say anything. Shang Guanyu was refining weapons, and this was the time when she needed to be the most careful. Once she was disturbed, her mind would be in a mess and she would lose everything. At that time, as her contracted magical beast Dumpling would naturally be greatly affected. Perhaps he could take advantage of this opportunity to end it all. Elder Yi Gong suddenly raised his hand and flames surged in his palm. He was about to take action. Wait! A voice suddenly sounded. Elder Yi Gong heard it and his heart was filled with disgust. Yishang. It's him again. It was obvious what Yishang wanted to do. Elder Yi Gong's eyes darkened and he decided to ignore him. As long as he could solve the problem of Shang Guanyu, the rest of the matter wouldn't be a problem. He flipped his wrist and immediately took action. An arrow suddenly flew through the air, drawing a straight black line in the air and headed straight for the light ball. Elder Yishang's eyes darkened when he saw this. At the same time he waved his sleeves. A gust of wind blew, blocking the arrow in front of him. In the next moment the arrow was tightly gripped in his hand. Yishang. Elder Yi Gong frowned when his attack didn't succeed. What are you doing? I should be the one asking that question. Elder Yishang's expression was calm, but there was a hint of coldness in his eyes. EU has already sealed the surroundings and the energy won't spread outside for now. Great Elder, why are you in such a hurry to take action? Elder Yi Gong narrowed his eyes. Of course I'm thinking for Fenghuang Valley. If something happens, what kind of trouble can a mere exalted god cause? It's fine if you take action now and hurt Shang Guanyu, but if it affects the others, I'm afraid it'll be hard to explain to the clan leader, right? With the clan leader mentioned, Elder Yi Gong naturally couldn't say anything more. He gritted his teeth and snorted coldly. Good. Since that's the case, if anything happens you'll bear all the responsibility. Elder Yishang smiled and returned the arrow in his hand. That's what I should do. Elder Yi Gong suppressed the anger in his heart and snatched the arrow back. Master. Hearing the voice, he turned his head. Iran, why aren't you cultivating? Why are you here to join in the fun? Iran hurriedly said. I only came out because I heard the commotion. It's not that. Elder Yi Gong sized him up and his expression didn't look good. It's been 10 days since I gave him pointers. Why hasn't he broken through yet? But before he could ask, the Tianlei in the sky suddenly struck down at an even faster speed. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1580. Seeing the commotion, everyone in Fenghuang Valley turned to look, each with a different expression. This Shang Guanyu, what kind of divine weapon was it forging? Wasn't the speed at which it consumed Tianlei a little too fast? Could she really bear it? Dumpling, how do you feel now? Inside the ball of light on the mountain peak, Chu Liwei sat cross-legged, looking at Dumpling above her. The Tianlei did not land on the bracelet. Instead they were all intercepted by Dumpling. Its small body was covered by the dazzling light, almost impossible to see clearly. Chu Liwei could only rely on the contract between them to roughly guess its current situation. Dumpling did not make a sound. After a while the lightning dissipated, and its body was gradually revealed. At that moment, it was fiercely intercepting a Tianlei and swallowing it without hesitation. It was over. A few silver lights flashed across its body, then quickly disappeared under its feathers. The whole process was smooth and without any pause. Burp. Dumpling burped, then spat out another streak of lightning. Chu Liwei made a tisk sound. Why are you eating in such a hurry? These are all yours anyway. Dumpling lowered its head and looked at her. It blinked pitifully as if it was embarrassed. Actually, it did not do it on purpose. After seeing the Tianlei, it suddenly felt hungry. It did not know why, but the more it ate, the hungrier it became. In a moment of carelessness, she ate too quickly and burped. At first, it did not feel this way, but for some reason, Tu Liu's brows twitched. In reality, she was not as calm as she appeared to be on the surface. She wanted to attract Tianlei to help Dumpling break through, so she let Dumpling intercept the Tianlei halfway. But gradually, she realized that the development of the situation was gradually getting off track. Dumpling's tolerance and ability to swallow Tianlei far exceeded her expectations. Seeing Dumpling bathing in Tianlei, not only was it not injured, but it also became more energetic. Chu Luiyue was completely relieved. Perhaps the experience in the Eye of 1,000 Wine Spring made Dumpling so different? The answer was unknown. But she knew that attracting Tianlei would be helpful for Dumpling's breakthrough. The aura on its body was rapidly becoming stronger as the amount of heavenly lightning it devoured increased. As long as it persevered, it might really be able to open Dumpling's meridians in the remaining time. Soon, another bolt of heavenly lightning struck. Dumpling looked up, its eyes sparkling, eager to make a move. The waiting time seemed to be particularly unbearable. Everyone in Phoenix Mountain was starting to get impatient from waiting. They looked up again and again, but they were disappointed again and again. This was because the sky was still dark, and within the clouds, the heavenly lightning gathered endlessly as if there was no end to it. No one knew how long this situation would last. Elder Yu yawned and greeted them lazily. "No, I've been watching here all this time and my eyes have almost never closed. I really can't hold on any longer. I'll go rest first." With that, he turned around and left in a carefree manner. He was not worried at all. With Yi Gong and Yi Shang here, there would absolutely be no problem. Besides, he was indeed tired. Judging from the current situation, it would not stop for a while. He might as well go back and take a nap. Elder Yi Gong's expression was very displeased. Was he pushing all the blame onto them? But he still had a lot of things to do. How could he keep waiting here? Who knew how long he would have to wait? However, he was unwilling to leave just like that. On the other hand, Elder Yi Shang seemed to be unperturbed as he waited patiently. Elder Yi Gong thought for a moment and turned to look at Iran. "Go back first and cultivate in peace." Iran did not want to waste any more time here, but he was worried that he would not be able to calm down after returning. "Master, this commotion is really a little big." Elder Yi Gong had been his master for many years, so he naturally guessed his thoughts. He could not help but frown and pat his shoulder. Iran only felt a warm force enter his body instantly. His heart skipped a beat. "As long as you're focused enough, this won't affect you, understand?" Iran hurriedly responded. "Thank you for your teachings, master. Go back." "Yes." Iran did not continue to argue and quickly left. Elder Yi Shang's gaze lingered on him for a moment, but he quickly looked away as if nothing had happened. After Iran left, many people began to return one after another. However, whether they could completely withdraw their thoughts was another matter. A day passed quickly. Elder Yi Gong's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. His throbbing temples showed that he was on the verge of exploding in anger. "What is Shangguan Yu trying to do?" After so long, Fenghuang Valley still could not calm down. The heavenly lightning continued to gather and strike down one after another. He had already lost count of how many bolts of lightning had entered the ball of light. Elder Yi Shang smiled faintly. Refining weapons is very troublesome. It was said that some weapon refiners would spend months or even years to refine a divine artifact. Although Shangguan Yu's level is not that high, her Taizu is a venerable weapon refiner. Her talent and ability in this area should not be weak. 1 or 2 days. Naturally, it is not enough. Elder Yi Gong choked. His lips moved, but in the end he swallowed the rest of his words. Elder Yi Shang glanced at him and the corners of his mouth curled into a smile. What he did not say was that Tianlei would usually summon everyone to refine weapons at once, or once in a while to refine them repeatedly. But unlike Shangguan Yu, it seemed like there was no end to it at the beginning. It went on and on. Usually only weapon refiners would know about such things. He only knew about it because he had seen it unintentionally. However, there was no need to tell Yi Gong this. He crossed his arms and looked ahead. How did Shangguan Yu do this? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1581. Another few days passed. Everything was the same in Fenghuang Valley. After looking up for the umpteenth time, he realized that the number of Tianlei had not decreased. Elder Yi Gong could no longer hold himself back and left in anger. He wanted to see an accident happen in Shangguanyu. He also wanted to see the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix suffer. It would be best if they could disappear together. Unfortunately, he did not have the time to wait here. The ancestral worship ceremony was about to begin. There were many things waiting for him to arrange. Not long after Elder Yi Gong left, Elder Yi Yu slowly came over. He grinned at Elder Yi Shang and said, "I'll keep an eye on things here. You'd better go busy yourself with the ancestral worship ceremony." Elder Yi Shang didn't refuse and nodded. "Keep an eye on things." Elder Yi Yu laughed out loud. "I know. Don't worry." Other than Fenghuang Valley, the other places of Fenghuang Mountain were bustling with activity. Of course, this bustle was mostly solemn, nervous, and serious. Every time they held an ancestral worship ceremony, they would prepare a grand ceremony, and this year was no exception. Many people were busy, checking repeatedly, afraid that they would miss anything. But at this moment, Fenghuang Temple was still silent. Within the temple, Yi Zhao took one last look at the huge mural and bowed deeply. "Ancestor, you must protect our clan." He maintained this posture for a long time, then finally turned and left the temple. After walking out, there was a huge square in front of the main hall. Clear and lustrous white jade stones were laid out neatly, and could clearly reflect each person's figure. In the center was the totem of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. At this moment, the square was guarded by many people. This was the place where the ancestral worship ceremony was held. When they saw Yi Zhao, they all bowed respectfully. "Greetings, clan leader." Yi Zhao raised his hand and looked at the surroundings before he asked in an indifferent voice, "Where's Yi Gong?" Everyone looked at each other. The person in front lowered his head. "Clan leader, Grand Elder should still be in Fenghuang Valley." Yi Zhao frowned. "What is he doing there? Have you finished the preparations in the main hall?" Hearing the dissatisfaction in his tone, the people below naturally did not dare to say anything. Yi Zhao lifted his gaze and looked in the direction of Fenghuang Valley. From here one could vaguely see dark clouds gathering in Tianlei. Of course he knew what was going on over there. Fenghuang Valley has always been under the care of Yu. As a Grand Elder, why did he run over to join in the fun for such a long time? "Please forgive me, Patriarch." Suddenly a somewhat hurried voice sounded. It was Yi Palace who had just returned. When he saw Yi Zhao standing there, he knew something was wrong, but he could only bite the bullet and go over. Yi Zhao's gaze was as sharp as a knife. He slowly scanned his body as if he wanted to peel off a layer of his skin. Elder Yi Gong's forehead was drenched in cold sweat. But in the end, Yi Zhao did not reprimand him too much. "Forget it, let's talk about this later." First he had to prepare for the Great Hall. Elder Yi Gong secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Yes. Yi Zhao looked at the sky and frowned. "I see that you still have a lot of things to do. If you don't complete them in the remaining time." Elder Yi Gong was about to defend himself when he heard Yi Zhao continue. "The date of the ancestral worship ceremony will be postponed." Yi Gong's heart skipped a beat. Clan leader. Digression. November Fringe Event Winners List. 1. Star of Monthly Votes. Bei Xiaodao 27. Star of Commentary. Chu Changshinamo Lure 2. QQ Reading Star of Recommendation. Monody 196. Star of Commentary. Lu Guyunbei Bei contact Feiyue as soon as possible tomorrow at 12 p.m. Mobile users please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1582. The ancestral worshipping ceremony was held once every 100 years. It was one of the most important events for the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. How could he dare to delay the ancestral worshipping ceremony because of him? "Don't worry, clan leader. I've already made the necessary preparations. I won't delay the ceremony." Elder Yi Gong's voice trembled as he spoke. Although he held a high position in the clan and held great power, there were some things that even he did not dare to cross. Yi Zhao glanced at him. "You also know that there is no room for mistakes during the ancestral worshipping ceremony. Everything has to be done with extreme caution. You have been staying at Phoenix Mountain for the past few days, right? It is inevitable that you will be distracted. Delaying the time is better than making any mistakes when the time comes." Many gazes were directed at them. Elder Yi Gong's face turned green and white. He was extremely embarrassed. Yi Zhao's words were not without reason, but in front of so many people he really did not give him any face at all. Furthermore, he had been the great elder for so many years. It was not the first time he had to prepare for the ancestral worshipping ceremony. Nothing had ever happened before. Why would he suddenly die just because he stayed in Phoenix Valley for 2 more days? A thought flashed through his mind as he glanced at Yi Zhao. Suddenly he became suspicious. Why did it feel like the clan leader wanted to delay the ancestral worshipping ceremony? Elder Yi Gong retracted his gaze, calmed himself down and said word by word, "That's right. Don't worry, clan leader. I will personally supervise in the coming days to ensure that nothing goes wrong. If anything happens, I am willing to bear all the responsibility." This was a bit like a military order. Yi Zhao raised his eyebrows slightly. "Since you have said so, I will believe you this time." Elder Yi Gong was stunned. Why, did he not say that he was delaying and agreed directly? He quickly looked up. Unfortunately, he could not see anything from Yi Zhao's face. He could only suppress his suspicions. "All right. Go and prepare." Yi Zhao waved his hand. Elder Yi Gong bowed his head and replied, "Yes." Yuntian Tower. In the ethereal hall it was dead silent. Rong Xiu's question made Elder Yu Jingzuan panic. In just a short while his back was drenched in sweat. His clothes were stuck to his body and it was sticky and cold. It was extremely uncomfortable. "It's because..." Elder Yu Jing hesitated, but he could not find a reason. He felt that Rong Xiu's gaze was as sharp and cold as an ice blade when it landed on him. Right at this moment, a low and deep voice suddenly sounded. When something happened to the patriarch, the first person to go in was Yu Jing. Wasn't it normal for the patriarch to have his aura on him? The elder Tong Chuan. Hearing this, Elder Yu Jing's train of thought was suddenly broadened. He sat bolt upright. Yes. At that time I had some matters to discuss with the patriarch, but after knocking on the door for a long time, there was no response. I was worried, so I barged into the clan leader's room. When I entered, I saw that the clan leader was unconscious, so I took his pulse and injected a surge of origin energy into him. That's all. He averted his eyes. It slipped my mind that there was such a matter. No one knew whether he had really forgotten about it or not. It was up to Rong Xiu whether he believed it or not. Is that so? Sitting at the head of the table, he tapped his hand lightly on the armrest. His eyes were deep and unfathomable, making it impossible to tell what he was thinking. Elder Tong Chuan raised his eyebrows. Elder Yu Jing has always been close to the clan leader. When he saw that something happened to the clan leader, he couldn't help but worry about him. Actually, I do have some thoughts about why the clan leader suddenly fell unconscious. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows. Elder Tong Chuan's face suddenly revealed a hint of worry, and he sighed deeply. Actually, this old man thought that the clan leader had suffered a blow in Fong province and was in a bad mood. That was why he locked himself in the house and refused to see anyone after returning. Since your highness has already checked the clan leader's condition, you should know that there are no injuries inside or outside his body. Perhaps it has something to do with his mood. There was silence. The incident in Fong province that day had already spread like wildfire, and almost the entire Divine Ruins world knew about it. The clan leader of Yuntian Tower, Bailey Jun, had brought Jiang Jiwan with him since she was a child, taking care of her carefully and doting on her. Who would have thought that in the end she wasn't his biological granddaughter? This matter had already become a joke to everyone. No one would be able to accept it, let alone Bailey Jun, who had always cared about his face. Elder Tong Chuan raised his eyes and looked at Rong Xiu. Your Highness, don't wash your dirty linen in public. You were too impulsive that day. After the incident in Fong province, he had almost lost all his face. It would be difficult for him to appear in front of the people of the Divine Ruins world in the future. If he could come back and talk about it in private, the clan leader might not be like this. Rong Xiu smiled with a lazy expression. Elder Tong Chuan, do you mean everything is Ai's fault? That's not what this old man meant. Elder Tong Chuan said. This old man just feels that there should be a better way to deal with the incident that day. Clan leader knew that Lingxiao College was in a lot of trouble, but he still brought Jiang Jiwan there. Moreover, after Jiang Jiwan's many crimes were exposed, he was still very biased towards her. I didn't want to get involved in all these things at that time, but the clan leader only cared about Jiang Jiwan, so I couldn't persuade him no matter what. In the end, things developed to that point and I didn't want to see it. Rong Xiu interrupted him and looked at him with a smile. However, there was coldness at the corner of his eyes. Could it be that Elder Tong Chuan thinks that I want to lose face in front of all the experts of the Divine Ruins world? Elder Tong Chuan choked. Of course he couldn't admit it. But, if it wasn't premeditated, why would Rong Xiu arrange for someone to replace Jiang Hetian and take the Jiang family under his command? He had clearly planned it all out. Elder Tong Chuan even felt that Rong Xiu had known about the matter between Bailey Jun and Jiang Jiwan long ago. As for losing face, at most Rong Xiu would lose face, but the one who really lost face was still Bailey Jun. Rong Xiu looked around. Did you all come with the same idea this time? His voice was very soft and faint, but it weighed heavily on everyone's heart like a heavy stone. Elder Tong Chuan hurriedly explained. Your Highness, you misunderstand. This old man just felt that the incident might have caused too much of a blow to the clan leader, so, of course there might be other possibilities. Of course there are other possibilities. Rong Xiu said lightly. The clan leader has just broken through and his strength has increased greatly. Even if he is depressed, he shouldn't be like this. Instead of investigating, you are all here waiting to question I. His thin scarlet lips curled up slightly. You guys are getting bolder and bolder. Love Network has a better reading experience. Chapter 1583. Looks like this Shangguan Yu is not only brave but also capable. Fenghuang Valley. Elder Yu looked at the ball of bright light in the distance and could not help but click his tongue. It had been a total of 13 days since she triggered the heavenly lightning. Everything was the same as before and there was no sign of it stopping. Every day, every night, every moment the scene in Fenghuang Valley was the same. He was getting tired of looking at it. At first he was quite interested in counting how many heavenly lightning bolts had gathered. But he gave up soon after. Because he realized that it was impossible to count. Those Tianlei seemed to be free as they struck down one after another. Lightning flashed and it was blinding. How could he count them? It has been so long, why is there still no sign of it? Elder Yu knew that Shangguan Yu had summoned so many Tianlei not to refine the divine artifact, but to help Dumpling break through. Unfortunately, until now there were still no signs of it happening. But there was not much time left. Elder Yu squinted his eyes and suddenly turned around to look at the Phoenix Shrine in the distance. The ancestral worship ceremony was getting closer and closer, and the entire Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan was getting busy. He did not know if he could make it in time. Chu Luiyue was also at a loss. She sat cross-legged on the star stone and raised her head slightly. She looked at Dumpling, who was still busy in midair, with mixed feelings. Logically speaking, it should be over. It had been so long, but Dumpling did not show any signs of breaking through to the meridian opening realm. Instead, it seemed to be getting hungrier as it ate. The only change was that there were many flashing silver lightning bolts on its body, which occasionally swam through its feathers. The aura on its body was still rising at first, but since 3 days ago it had stagnated. Seeing that Tuanzi had once again devoured all the lightning bolts that landed, Chu Luiyue turned around and glanced at the bangle that was suspended in midair. With Dumpling around, it would be quite difficult to complete the refinement process. Chu Luiyue rubbed his forehead. Dumpling had devoured quite a bit of Tianlei's power in the eye of the 10,000 wine spring. But at that time, in order to stimulate the bloodline in its body, it broke through from the red-tailed red phoenix to the ancient divine beast crimson gold heavenly phoenix. It was understandable. But what was going on now? Its small body was almost like a bottomless pit. None of the Tianlei that had fallen had returned. After thinking for a long time, Chu Luiyue finally couldn't help but ask, Dumpling, when do you plan to break through? Dumpling was stunned. She lowered her head and looked at her. Just as she was about to say something, there was a loud explosion in the sky. A few more Tianlei bolts flew down again. Dumpling's eyes lit up. She didn't have time to say anything to Chu Luiyue and hurriedly went to greet him. Crackle. Crunch. Looking at Dumpling devouring the Tianlei with great proficiency, the corner of Chu Luiyue's eyes twitched fiercely. Then she accepted her fate and swallowed the rest of her words. Fine. There were some things that really didn't need to be asked anymore. Beside the vast and boundless sea, Shangguanjing stood with his hands behind his back and looked ahead with a solemn expression. So much time had passed, but still hadn't returned. He didn't know what the situation inside was like. The more he waited, the more uneasy he felt. At this moment, a reddish-gold light suddenly rushed out from under the sea surface. It went straight to the sky. Bang! That ball of hot flame drew an extremely brilliant arc in the sky, and then suddenly exploded. Countless sparks bloomed. It was noon. The sky was clear and the sun was shining brightly. But the sparks were still bright. In the end, it formed a huge pattern of a crimson-gold heavenly phoenix spreading its wings in the sky. Shangguanjing's heart tightened. Suddenly he seemed to have thought of something and a trace of shock flashed past his eyes. Could it be that the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan's ancestral worship ceremony had begun? He had never been to the Divine Phoenix Mountain. Even when he was unhindered in the Divine Ruins world 1,000 years ago, he had never come into contact with the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. In the eyes of the world, the two great ancient divine beasts were extremely mysterious. However, there were many legends about their ancestral worship ceremony. It was rumored that their ancestral worship ceremony was only held once every 100 years. It was very grand and had a profound meaning. Shangguanjing looked over again. In the sky, the pattern of the crimson gold heavenly phoenix formed by the blooming flames didn't dissipate. Instead, it seemed to be fixed. Every single spark was burning passionately and emitting a dazzling light. It was really bright and dazzling. Shangguanjing couldn't help but feel even more uneasy. How important was the ancestral worship ceremony? The Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan had always hated the human race. Logically speaking, it was impossible for them to let continue to stay there. Why hadn't she come out yet? Right at this moment, a melodious and loud cry came from afar. In an instant, it almost spread throughout the entire sea. Shangguanjing's heart trembled and he almost couldn't stand still. Immediately after, he saw a layer of ice rapidly spreading above the sea in front of him. Transparent ice covered the sea surface. At a glance, the crimson gold light could be faintly seen. It was exactly the same as the ice bridge that appeared that day. However, this time, the layer of ice had extended from the narrow ice bridge to the entire surface of the sea. In just a short while, more than half of the sea in front of Shangguanjing was already frozen. At a glance, it was cold and clear. However, below it there were crimson gold flames that burned silently. Solemn and sacred, silent and silent. In the square in front of the Phoenix Shrine, the members of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan were divided into two sides. Each of them was anxiously and expectantly waiting for the ancestral worship ceremony to begin. At this moment, the clan leader and the 5 elders were still in the Phoenix Shrine and hadn't come out. Everyone's mood wasn't as tense as before. They were discussing something in low voices. After waiting for so long, it's finally here. This is my first time participating in the ancestral worship ceremony. Me too. There's going to be a talent test during the ceremony. I don't know if I can get a good result. Actually, I'm not worried about the talent test. After all, everyone more or less knows their own standards. It's just that, after the test, there's still a competition. I'm afraid it'll be difficult to win beautifully. The one with the most confidence should be Iran, right? I heard that this time he's aiming for the position of young master. Hasn't he always considered himself as the #1 person in the younger generation? But since he has this ability, it's not up to us to say anything. Why isn't he here yet? Hearing this, many people looked around. Indeed, they didn't see Iran's figure. Strange. He's always the most active on such occasions. Why is he so late today? Let's not talk about him. It's almost time. The clan leader and the rest haven't come out yet. Inside the Phoenix Shrine, Yi Zhao and the 5 elders stood. Elder Yi Gong raised his eyes. Clan leader, it's time. We should go out. Digression. My hands are frozen, so I'm writing very slowly. My friends who have won a prize should quickly join the group and look for February to get the rewards. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1584. Yi Zhao nodded and took the lead to walk outside. The black gilded door opened automatically. Bright sunlight shone in. Yi Zhao lifted his chin slightly and looked outside. From here to the plaza one needed to walk down 9 flights of stairs. Thus standing here one could easily overlook the entire plaza. When the door opened and a few figures appeared, the originally lively plaza instantly quieted down. All eyes were focused on them. Then everyone bowed in unison. "Welcome, clan leader." Many figures on both sides bowed in unison. Although there were not many people, those who were able to come here were the most outstanding of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. Just by standing there he was able to produce an imperceptibly strong pressure. Yi Zhao calmly raised his eyes and looked in the direction of Fenghuang Valley. Dark clouds gathered and Tianlei rumbled. Clearly the commotion over there had not stopped. No one knew if it would end in a short period of time. Yi Zhao quickly retracted his gaze and waved his hand. A majestic aura quickly spread out. "Rise." Only then did everyone stand up. Yi Zhao looked around. When he saw the group of youngsters standing together he paused for a moment. Sensing that the patriarch was looking at them, the young children all unconsciously became nervous. Among them, many were participating in the ancestral worship ceremony for the first time. It was also their first time coming to the plaza in front of the shrine of the phoenix. It was normal for them to be nervous. Fortunately, Yi Zhao quickly retracted his gaze, which lessened the invisible pressure on them. Yi Zhao's deep and distant voice spread out mightily and clearly landed in everyone's ears. Today's ancestral worship ceremony is a grand occasion for the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan for 100 years. This time, other than paying respects to our ancestors and testing the new generation, there is also an extremely important matter: the selection of our clan's young clan leader. I have inherited the position of clan leader for more than 1,000 years. Today, it is time to select our young clan leader, who will be the next clan leader. Once these words were spoken, many people's expressions became faintly excited. In fact, they already knew about this before, but now that they heard it personally, they couldn't help but feel a surge of emotion. For the entire Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan, this matter was of great significance. Even though most people knew that they didn't have the qualifications to run, they were still filled with curiosity and excitement. Being able to witness the young master's selection with her own eyes was also a blessing. The first item of the ancestral worship ceremony, bloodline talent test. Yi Zhao raised his hand and was about to point at Iran. However, after looking for a while he did not see that familiar figure. He could not help but frown. He had taken a rough look earlier and thought that Iran was at the back. Only now did he realize that Iran had not arrived at all. This short pause immediately attracted the attention of everyone present. Many people looked at each other. According to the rules, the first person to be tested in the ancestral worship ceremony was usually the most outstanding of the younger generation. This could be considered a good start. In their generation, Iran should be the first to go up. But he wasn't here yet. Seeing this, Elder Yi Gong hurriedly took half a step forward and explained in a low voice. "Clan leader, a few days ago Iran told me that he had recently comprehended a lot and had faint signs of a breakthrough. During this period he has been in seclusion. Maybe he hasn't come out yet." It was not a small mistake to be late to the ancestral worship ceremony. But if it was for cultivation, it was understandable. Yi Zhao's expression eased a little. Iran has always known his limits. If it wasn't for special circumstances, I believe he wouldn't be like this. It seems that there is hope for a breakthrough this time. Elder Yi Gong hurriedly said. "Thank you for your auspicious words, clan leader. It's just that he hasn't successfully broken through yet. As his master, I don't dare to say anything." Yi Zhao smiled. "He is very talented. Everything will go smoothly. In fact, his strength is already outstanding. If he can successfully break through this time, he will be even more powerful." Elder Yi Gong lowered his head humbly. He is young and impetuous. There are still many things to learn. Although he seemed humble, there was a faint arrogance between his brows. Anyone with a discerning eye could see it clearly. Yi Zhao didn't mind. In recent years, Iran had indeed performed well. It was no wonder that Yi Gong was proud of him. Moreover, Iran had already opened 3 meridians. If he could really break through this time, he would have opened 4 meridians. Among the younger generation, there was no one who had reached this level. Yi Zhao raised his hand and pointed at a young man beside him. "Exen, let's start with you." The young man who was called out was a little surprised, but he quickly reacted. Yes. With that he walked straight forward and stopped when he reached the center of the square. This place was engraved with the totem of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. They were relying on this totem to conduct the test. Xian stood on the totem and looked down. Then he took a deep breath and calmed himself down. He was considered one of the most outstanding in the clan. Apart from Iran, he was basically the only one left. Xian and Iran were about the same age, but in comparison his personality was much calmer and he usually kept a low profile. Apart from cultivation, he rarely interfered with the matters of the clan. In this aspect he was the complete opposite of Iran. Everyone's gazes turned to him. Although it was not Iran who started, Xian's talent and strength were not bad. Let's begin. Xiao ordered. Xian nodded and then closed his eyes. In the next moment, a scarlet gold flame suddenly surged out of his body. The flame instantly surrounded him, and the blazing heat caused the surrounding air to instantly heat up. Buzz. A strange buzzing sound suddenly came from under his feet. Then the totem seemed to be ignited and gradually brightened. A warm and majestic light slowly emerged from under the totem. Everyone watched with rapt attention. Some did not even dare to blink, afraid that they would miss something. The totem of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan had a rather special shape. It was like a ball of flame, but also like a phoenix that was about to spread its wings and soar. There were 9 lines at the end of its tail like flames that had separated, but also like the tail of a phoenix. At this moment, as the flames on Xian's body burned, the 9 lines were lit up one by one. The first line, the second line, the third line. When the third line of flame lit up, everyone subconsciously held their breaths. Lighting up 3 lines meant that he had opened 3 meridians. 3 meridians were not rare. The key was whether he could continue. What was surprising was that the flames on Xian's body did not extinguish immediately. On the 4th line, specks of scarlet gold finally appeared. Hiss, he's going to light up the 4th line? Is that true? Only those who have opened 4 meridians can do that, right? I've never heard of Xian having a breakthrough before. He's been living in seclusion, focusing on cultivation and keeping a low profile. Maybe he really can light up the 4th line. Digression. After changing to a new platform, I'm still not used to it. I can't find a place to talk about this after searching for a long time. Chapter 1585. The expressions of Zhou and the rest also changed slightly, and their eyes were clearly much more serious than before. Only Elder Gong's brows quickly furrowed. Xian had broken through? Why didn't he know? No matter how low-key he was, this kind of thing couldn't be hidden, right? If this was true, then the competition for the young master's position would probably be much more intense. Poof. A small cluster of flames suddenly exploded and was annihilated. The 4th line on the totem was ultimately not ignited. The surroundings immediately quieted down and everyone had different expressions. Zhou and the rest were disappointed, but Elder Gong secretly heaved a sigh of relief. On the other hand, Xian's expression was normal, and only a faint trace of regret appeared on his young face, but it quickly dissipated. It seemed that he had expected this. He raised his head. Xian is useless and has disappointed the patriarch and elders. Zhou had always been serious, but at this moment he revealed a rare smile. Don't blame yourself. Although you haven't successfully opened the 4th meridian, it should be soon, right? Xian nodded, seeming a little embarrassed. Actually, I've been here for a long time and recently I've finally found a way, but my talent is limited, and I haven't completely comprehended and broken through. This is already very rare. As Zhou spoke, he glanced at Elder Yishang beside him. Yishang, Xian is your disciple, why didn't you guide him properly? Elder Yishang said with a smile. I can help him for a while, but I can't help him forever. He's only opened the 4th meridian now. If he can't even comprehend this by himself, wouldn't it be even more difficult in the future? In the end, cultivation depends on oneself. As soon as these words were said, many people subconsciously looked at Elder Gong. As expected, his face darkened a little. Everyone knew that Iran had been cultivating with Elder Gong recently, and probably received a lot of guidance. Wasn't Elder Xiang secretly slapping them in the face by saying this? Moreover, Xian has a steady personality and can endure. I believe that in time he will definitely succeed. Zhao nodded in agreement. He could tell that Xian was indeed only a step away from leaving the four branches. If the ancestral worship ceremony was delayed for a while longer, it might even cause Yiran a lot of trouble. Go back and cultivate well. Zhao gave a few more instructions before letting Xian go back. Next, when they saw that Xian had only opened 3 meridians, the people behind him all let out sighs of relief. Although they couldn't compare to the top few, they didn't want to be left too far behind. Fortunately, Xian's results did not make them feel too uncomfortable. The tests were carried out one after another. Elder Gong watched from above. Seeing that no one had opened 4 meridians, his mood improved. Those who had opened 3 meridians naturally had different levels of talent and strength. But no matter what, it was still a far cry from someone who had opened 4 meridians. Now he could only hope that Yiran would be able to successfully break through. Time passed slowly. On the square, everyone carried out the test in an orderly manner. Everything proceeded smoothly and calmly. Those who could come here had already transformed into human form. In other words, they had at least opened 3 meridians. But because these crimson gold heavenly phoenixes were very young, most of them had yet to open 4 meridians. More than 20 of them had already been tested. As expected, none of them had opened 4 meridians. Zhao couldn't help but look in the direction of Fenghuang Valley. His eyes were deep. However, Elder Gong gradually became anxious. Because more than half of the tests were over, but Yiran had yet to arrive. In fact, there wasn't even any movement. Previously, he had repeatedly reminded him not to miss the ancestral worship ceremony. If he didn't make it, it would be useless even if he successfully opened 4 meridians. It was already so late. Yiran should be here. Elder Gong frowned. Could it be that he encountered some trouble during his breakthrough? First, Elder, the children are almost done with their tests. Is Yiran still coming? Elder Yu asked in a curious manner. If he's any later, he won't be able to make it. Elder Gong was already frustrated. Hearing this, he became even more frustrated. He'll naturally come. Elder Yu's eyes darted around as he smiled. Why don't you go and take a look yourself? No matter what, it's always better to take a look, isn't it? Yiran has always been hardworking. We don't want to see him delay time and affect the important matters. What do you think? Although Elder Gong didn't like him, he was a little tempted when he heard this. This was a serious matter. It was always better to be careful. He looked at Zhao hesitantly. Zhao nodded. Elder Gong heaved a sigh of relief. Thank you, Patriarch. I'll go soon. With that, he moved and headed in the direction of Fenghuang Valley. However, at this moment, a rumbling sound suddenly came from afar. Elder Gong was shocked and immediately focused his gaze. Everyone in the square also turned their heads. In the distance, a figure suddenly rushed out from the shadows of the mountains. His body was burning with crimson gold flames and his aura was shocking. The surrounding heaven and earth energy also began to surge towards him rapidly. Elder Gong was delighted. Yiran looked like he was finally going to break through. As if to verify his guess, the flames on Yiran's body quickly gathered and condensed into the shape of a long feather in front of him. The feather moved slowly. There were already 3 crimson gold lines between Yiran's brows, shining brightly. Following the movement of the feather, the 4th line was slowly forming. Elder Gong was ecstatic. However, just as the 4th line was about to be completed, a loud sound came from the depths of Fenghuang Valley. In an instant, crimson gold flames splashed everywhere and heaven and earth shook. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1586. The feather in front of Yiran seemed to be affected and started to sway. The remaining half of the vein was not completed. This made Yiran anxious. But this was a critical moment and he did not dare to move. He could only stare at the feather in front of him and pray in his heart. Must be fine. Must be successful. No matter what happened over there, his 4th meridian must be opened. Because of his nervousness, his body started to tremble. Unfortunately, things did not go as he wished. Before he had time to think further, he suddenly felt a terrifying berserk energy surging towards him from behind. At the same time, an indescribably strong pressure descended. The feather in front of Iran swayed even more violently. Boom boom boom. In an instant, the remaining Tianlei in the sky finally came crashing down. All of them landed in the depths of Fenghuang Valley. At this moment, the sky changed color as if doomsday had arrived. Iran's eyes widened. The feather in front of him suddenly changed direction and flew in that direction. No. Before Iran could finish his sentence, his body shook violently and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Iran. The expression of Elder Yi Gong, who had been observing the situation, changed and he immediately rushed over. He was very fast and in the blink of an eye he was already in front of Fenghuang Valley. But when he arrived, he realized that the entire Fenghuang Valley was covered by that terrifying energy. It was very difficult for outsiders to enter. His speed was greatly reduced as if he was walking in a swamp and it was difficult for him to move forward. Luckily, Iran's position was not far from the exit of Fenghuang Valley, and Elder Yi Gong did not spend too much time to reach him. Elder Yi Gong's heart sank when he saw Iran's current state. His face and body were covered in blood. His complexion was exceptionally pale and his eyes were dim. His aura also seemed to have withered significantly. It was obvious that the previous attack had a huge impact on him. Actually, this was normal. Iran was already on the verge of breaking through, and it was a time when he could not be disturbed. But such an accident happened and it could be considered as forcefully interrupting his breakthrough. He was unprepared and naturally he was in a mess. But what worried Elder Yi Gong even more was that there were only 3 veins left between Iran's eyebrows. The 4th one that he had painstakingly drawn was only half completed before it was abruptly stopped. Iran suffered from the backlash and the remaining half of the veins had already dissipated. The sudden loss of the feather's support was a huge blow to him. At this moment he was filled with anger and resentment, so the situation was naturally even worse. Master. Iran's mouth was full of blood. When he saw Elder Yi Gong, he spoke with great difficulty. His voice was extremely weak, and in the midst of the continuous explosions in Fenghuang Valley, it was exceptionally pale. Elder Yi Gong couldn't care less. He quickly took action and brought Iran out. Iran looked back, unwilling to give up. That ball of fire was burning fiercely in the air. Countless bolts of heavenly lightning struck the surface. Vaguely there seemed to be a figure within. Right at this moment the reddish-golden feather had already flown over. It hovered in mid-air, swaying gently in front of the burning reddish-gold flame. Iran's eyes widened. His eyes were bloodshot. It was it. It was the crimson gold sky phoenix that had returned. It had snatched his meridian opening opportunity. That reddish gold feather had been left behind by the crimson gold sky phoenix clan's ancestor, and there was only one of it in the world. All crimson gold sky phoenixes needed this feather to open their meridians. Everything had been fine on his side, and the 4th meridian was about to open. Who would have thought that a troublemaker would come out of nowhere and interrupt his breakthrough process without saying a word? He even snatched the feather away by force. Iran was filled with anger and it burned fiercely. Looking at the fluttering feather and the blinding flame in the distance, his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He struggled to go back. Elder Yi Gong noticed his actions and his brows furrowed even more. Iran, what are you doing? Iran continued to stare in that direction. His voice was hoarse and filled with deep resentment. Master. It's too much. Elder Yi Gong noticed that something was wrong with his expression and turned back to look. However, when he saw it, his expression changed as well. Apart from shock and anger, he was also in disbelief. He had also stayed in the position of head elder for many years. What kind of great winds and waves had he not seen before? But the situation before him was too strange. The figure in the flame was obviously the crimson gold sky phoenix that had just returned. It had snatched Iran's meridian opening opportunity. Actually, in the crimson gold sky phoenix clan, because there was only one ancestor feather that could open meridians, it was inevitable that there would be fights over it. Under normal circumstances, the stronger one was, the higher the chance of success. That was normal. But the situation before him, that crimson gold sky phoenix had yet to transform into human form. How did it win against Iran? While Elder Yi Gong was in a daze, a gust of wind suddenly swept through Fenghuang Valley. He was caught off guard and was flung away by this terrifying force. Iran's body flew out uncontrollably as well. At that moment the feather finally drew a line. It was as smooth as flowing water, free and easy. Everyone widened their eyes in shock. That crimson gold sky phoenix had opened its meridians. Digression: when uploading the 5th update I accidentally deleted it all. After searching for a while I couldn't find a single word. I had to rewrite everything. An author cursed as he shut down his writing software and kicked away his broken laptop. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1587. How? Elder Yi Gong widened his eyes in disbelief. Didn't the crimson gold heavenly phoenix just break through not long ago? Why is it opening meridians now? Furthermore, it caused such a huge commotion. Iran felt as if all his strength had been sucked out of him when he saw that stroke of the brush. His legs turned to jelly and he almost fell to the ground. Elder Yi Gong was shocked and hurriedly pulled him up. However, Iran's eyes were dim. He stared at the ball of flame and could not help but laugh at himself. He had worked so hard to summon that feather and open meridians. Who knew that he would be killed halfway? He knew that after today's failure, it would be even harder for him to open meridians. I've disappointed you, Iran muttered and spat out another mouthful of blood. He was filled with anger and had nowhere to vent it. His chest was about to explode. There were too many things he wanted to say, but he did not know where to start. You must help me. Before Iran could finish his sentence, his eyes rolled back and he fainted. Iran. Seeing this, Elder Yi Gong became even more anxious and furious. The violent energy in Fenghuang Valley was still sweeping over. He could not stay here any longer. Elder Yi Gong looked back deeply, then gritted his teeth and left. Elder Yi Gong brought the unconscious Iran back to the square in front of Fenghuang Shrine. Seeing them return, everyone kept quiet, but their gazes landed on Iran. His face was pale and the corners of his mouth and chest were stained with blood. His breathing was weak. He looked like he had never been in such a sorry state before. Many people looked at each other with complicated expressions. Who would have thought that this would happen? Clan leader. Please, you must seek justice for Iran. As soon as Elder Yi Gong arrived, he spoke with great anger. That Shangguan Yu and that crimson gold heavenly phoenix are too much. They've made up their minds to take Iran's life. Yi Zhao walked over with a frown. He bent down to check on Iran's condition, then heaved a sigh of relief. Don't worry, he only suffered a backlash from a portion of his power. At the same time, his anger attacked his heart, causing him to fall unconscious. His life is not in danger. As he spoke, he stretched out his hand and placed his broad palm on Iran's forehead. A bright ray of light seemed to surge out of his palm and quickly flowed into Iran's body. His originally pale face began to recover at a speed visible to the naked eye. After a while, he withdrew his hand. Iran's eyebrows twitched, then he slowly woke up. His eyes were still a little dazed. Master? His voice was weak and hoarse, but he was finally awake. Yi Zhao said, Fortunately, there aren't any major problems. I'll be able to recover after a few days of rest. Elder Yi Gong was still in a daze. He didn't expect Yi Zhao to act so decisively, and Iran actually woke up just like that. This. Yi Zhao glanced at him and said indifferently, the ancestor's golden feather is our tribe's sacred item. It won't take the lives of our tribesmen. Yi Gong, as the great elder, shouldn't you know this best? Why did you say those words and make everyone nervous? Elder Yi Gong was momentarily at a loss for words, then he clenched his teeth. Clan leader, I'm not saying that there's a problem with the ancestor's golden feather. It's Shangguan Yu and the others. Iran was at a crucial point in his breakthrough and couldn't be disturbed. But they just had to snatch the ancestor's golden feather away at this moment. This is clearly intentional. He pointed at the depths of Fenghuang Valley, at the ball of fire that was burning fiercely. If they didn't use any underhanded methods, how could the ancestor's golden feather be forcefully snatched away while Iran was opening his meridians? Even if Ran's current injury wasn't fatal, the key point was that it caused his meridian opening to fail. Today was the ancestral worship ceremony. Without opening his fourth meridian, how was he different from others? How could he fight for the position of young master? Needless to say, he was injured now. This was the greatest loss. When Elder Gong thought about how his years of hard work had gone to waste, he almost went crazy with anger. Clan leader. They conspired against the law and should be killed. Because of his agitation, Elder Gong's voice was very sharp. Everyone in the square heard him clearly. Xiao's eyes were cold. Elder Yu was the first to speak. Great Elder, aren't your words a little biased? I feel that this is just a coincidence. Ran wanted to open his meridians and summon the ancestor's golden feather. But at this time, Dumpling also wanted to open her meridians. It was purely an accident. Elder Gong laughed coldly. An accident? You've been in the clan for so many years. It's not like you haven't seen people opening their meridians at the same time, right? But when have you ever seen someone snatch the ancestor's golden feather halfway? Under normal circumstances, this matter was based on first come, first served. Now that someone had snatched it from them, they still had to swallow their anger. Impossible. This Great Elder means that Shangguan Yu and Dumpling have already reached the stage where they can control the ancestor's golden feather at will? Elder Yu blinked his eyes. Elder Gong suddenly choked. The expression on his face froze for a moment before he hurriedly said, "That's right. What nonsense are you talking about? When have I ever said such a thing?" The ancestor's golden feather was considered a supreme existence in the clan. How could he dare to speak rudely? But what you said just now, wasn't that what you meant? Elder Yu raised his chin. Yes, everyone saw it just now. It was the ancestor's golden feather that went to Dumpling's side. Moreover, it did open Dumpling's meridians just now. When it drew that line, everyone saw it clearly. Elder Gong's chest seemed to be surging wildly, almost driving him crazy. Even if it wants to open its meridians, it has to wait until Ran is done. What's going on now? So brazen. Really too arrogant. Elder Yu also laughed. Actually, this matter is not easy to say. Under normal circumstances, it is indeed according to the order of meridians opening. But Grand Elder seems to have forgotten that there is a prerequisite. The strong are respected. If they are both opening their meridians, naturally the one with a higher level will have the advantage. After Elder Gong heard this, he was stunned for a moment. After a moment he finally reacted and almost laughed out of anger. Your words are too laughable. You have to know that Ran is about to open his fourth meridian. And that crimson gold heavenly phoenix is only at the second meridian. Isn't it obvious who's better and who's worse? You said that it can beat Ran. Isn't it too laughable? Elder Yu rubbed his chin and didn't seem to care about his words. He smiled and said, "Yes. Tell me, what's the reason why a second meridian can beat a fourth meridian?" The expression on Elder Gong's face suddenly froze. Zhou said calmly, "Contacting the meridian opener can take the ancestor's golden feather. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network." Chapter 1588. The surroundings suddenly quieted down. Elder Gong opened his mouth but no sound came out. Continuous meridians opening. To many in the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan, this was just a legend. After the creation of the world, two ancient divine beasts were born in the chaos. Tens of thousands of years had passed since then. And in this long period of time, the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan continued to multiply, and their numbers were not small. But among them, those who could continuously open meridians could be counted on one hand. Crimson Gold Sky Phoenixes were born with one meridian. After 100 years they could open a second meridian. After 100 years, they could try to open a third meridian and transform into a human. Success was not guaranteed. Those who were more talented would be able to do it when they were a little over 100 years old. But there were also those with average talent who were still outside the door of the third meridian at 200 or 300 years old. And after opening 3 meridians, it was even more difficult to advance. This was basically the time to completely rely on one's talent. Those with outstanding talent could break through smoothly. Those who opened the 6th meridian would be promoted to elder. And those who could open the 7th meridian would be the clan leader. This was also why they had to pick the one with the best talent when selecting the young master. Only with power could one have the right to speak. If they could not even control the situation, what else could they say? Continuous meridians opening? Amidst the dead silence, Ran was the first to react. He looked up at Fenghuang Valley again. The ball of flame was still burning and the figure inside could not be seen clearly. But the ancestor's golden feather had not disappeared. It was still floating in the air as if waiting for a second stroke. How is this possible? Ran murmured. His eyes were filled with disbelief. However, his heart had already completely sunk. He had been in a fit of anger and did not have time to think so much. But now that he had calmed down, he realized that things might be as Yi Zhao and the others had said. That crimson gold sky phoenix was really going to open meridians continuously. Otherwise, how could it have so easily snatched the ancestor's golden feather from him? After opening meridians, the ancestor's golden feather would automatically disappear until the next summoning. But now it was still there perfectly fine. If it wasn't to continue opening meridians, then what was it? Ran couldn't accept it. His heart felt like it was being crushed by something and he found it hard to breathe. Preposterous. How laughable. That crimson gold heavenly phoenix had only broken through a few months ago. Now that it had returned to the clan, it was going to open its meridians consecutively? Ran suddenly recalled what his master had said to him before. At that time he had said that the crimson gold heavenly phoenix might become a threat to him. At that time he didn't think much of it. But now he finally knew where his master's grave expression came from. At this moment Elder Yishang raised his chin and said softly, "That's right. Look, the ancestral golden feather is moving." Hearing this, everyone subconsciously looked over. Sure enough, they saw that the reddish gold feather was slowly drawing a second line. The square was completely silent. Shock, nervousness, suspicion, lamentation, envy. Everyone had different expressions on their faces. It was obvious that they were feeling very complicated at this moment. Actually, if it was someone else from the clan, they might not have such a big reaction. But it just had to be that crimson gold heavenly phoenix that had just returned from outside. Didn't they say that it had only broken through a few months ago? Didn't they say that it was a lowly 9-colored heavenly pheasant in the past? More importantly, until now, it hadn't even broken its contract with that human. They had always looked down on the human race and rarely interacted with them. They even viewed the contract with a human as a huge stain. But who knew that this crimson gold heavenly phoenix that they secretly looked down on and contracted with a human would actually win against all of them? One had to know that even clan leader Yi Zhao hadn't opened his meridians consecutively. How could they not be shocked by this scene? Clan leader, looks like you're going to lose the bet this time. Elder Yu shrugged his shoulders. However, there was a smile on his face. After so many years, this is the first time you've lost, right? And to a human. Yi Zhao put his hands behind his back and looked into the distance with a heavy gaze. There seemed to be waves surging in his eyes. He didn't say anything, but there was no anger on his face. It seemed that he had silently agreed. In fact, although he looked calm and indifferent on the surface, he was actually shocked at this moment. When he proposed the bet, he didn't think much about it. In his opinion, the possibility of Xianxia being able to help Dumpling transform into a human within a month was almost zero. As long as she failed, the contract would have to be broken. This way it would save both parties from continuing to argue. It was undeniable that because of Dumpling's pure bloodline, he actually had some extravagant hopes in the depths of his heart. But he didn't think that it would actually succeed. Until now, when he saw the ancestor's golden feather drawing another line, he finally believed that all of this had really happened. Dumpling is still very young. It's not easy for her to open 3 meridians directly. During this period, Xianxia caused such a huge commotion in Tianlei. This should be the reason, right? Elder Yishang said with a smile. We have misunderstood her previously. But fortunately, Yu has been watching over her all this time, and no one has rashly disturbed her. If Dumpling fails to open her meridians because of this, we will suffer a great loss. No matter what, Dumpling was the bloodline of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. She had continuously opened her meridians and broken through. This was a joyous occasion for the entire clan. Elder Yi Gong's face turned pale. Of course he could tell that these words were mocking him. After enduring for a while he couldn't hold it in anymore and walked in front of Yi Zhao. Yi Zhao saw his angry expression and narrowed his eyes slightly. Yi Gong, what are you trying to do? Elder Yi Gong gritted his teeth. Clan leader, I don't want to do anything. I just want to seek justice for Yi Ran. He suddenly raised his hand and pointed at Fenghuang Valley. I know. It can continuously open its meridians because it is capable. But you can't be biased because of this. Now it has opened 3 meridians, but what about Yi Ran? He could have opened his 4th meridian. There's no way you don't know how much he's sacrificed for this day. Now just because that crimson gold sky phoenix wants to continuously open its meridians, it can do whatever it wants and cause harm to others. Moreover, although it opened its 3rd meridian today, it is still unknown whether it is good or bad for it to grow by rushing it. No one can guarantee that it can continue to open its meridians in the future. But Yi Ran has truly lost the chance to open his 4th meridian. Clan leader, which is more important, do you know in your heart? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1589. Elder Yi Gong's voice was cold and stern. Every word was sonorous and powerful. Many people looked at each other. Surely, what he said was not without reason. That crimson gold heavenly phoenix could continuously open meridians, which was indeed powerful. However, it was also a fact that it had interrupted Yi Ran's meridians. Yi Ran's talent had always been very good, and he was number 1 among the younger generation. The losses he had suffered this time were not small at all. And this was undoubtedly a loss for their entire clan. Moreover, that crimson gold heavenly phoenix was still young. If it forcefully opened 3 meridians, it might indeed cause the opposite effect. Wouldn't that be even worse? One was a genius who had yet to grow up, while the other was a seedling who already had some strength. How to choose was indeed a difficult problem. Yi Zhao glanced at the dejected Yi Ran and frowned slightly. I've already said that Yi Ran's internal and external injuries are not serious. Moreover, I've personally helped him recover just now. As long as he goes back and rests for a few days, he will recover. The matter is not as serious as you say. Yi Gong, why are you so aggressive? It's not that I'm aggressive, but Shangguan Yu and the others' actions are too despicable. Elder Yi Gong immediately retorted. Patriarch, Yi Ran's physical injuries can indeed recover quickly. However, what if this matter leaves a psychological barrier in his heart? That will have an extremely serious impact on his future cultivation. That was an even greater hidden danger. Elder Yi Shang frowned. Grand Elder, are you questioning the Patriarch? Elder Yi Gong's heart skipped a beat and he felt a little uneasy. However, after thinking about it, he still did not retreat. He could not retreat. Today Yi Ran had failed to open his meridians. He probably had no hope of becoming the young master. He had to fight for the greatest benefits. Patriarch, I just want an explanation. The atmosphere was cold. The cold atmosphere made everyone tremble in fear, and they did not dare to say anything. However, just when everyone thought that Yi Zhao would be angry, he suddenly laughed. This smile was very short and it did not extend to the corners of his eyes. Elder Yi Gong's heart turned cold. If that's the case, then Yi Ran is too useless. Yi Zhao's voice was indifferent, with a trace of cold dignity that could not be disobeyed. Such a cowardly person is not qualified to continue competing for the position of young master. Elder Yi Gong's expression froze for a moment. He never thought that Yi Zhao would say something like that. Clan leader? What do you mean by this? His lips trembled slightly, and there was a hint of urgency and worry in his voice. Yi Zhao's smile faded. It's literally what I said. His answer was cold and merciless, instantly causing Elder Yi Gong and Yi Ran to feel as if they had fallen into an ice cave. I'm not. Only then did Elder Yi Gong realize what a stupid mistake he had made. He said that Yi Ran's future cultivation might be affected. Wasn't that pushing him away from the position of young master? Not to mention them, no clan in this world would allow a powerless person to take the position. Elder Yi Gong was filled with regret. Of all the things he could say, why did he have to leave such a topic for others to gossip about? Yi Ran was also stunned and his face turned pale. At this moment, It was as if a string that had been taut in his mind had snapped. He opened his mouth and could not help but defend himself. Clan leader, could it be that in your heart, I'm inferior to that bastard who came back from the outside? The surroundings suddenly fell silent. Some people could not help but cover their mouths. Iran was really crazy. It was fine to say some things in private, but how could he say it in public? Even Elder Yi Gong looked at him in shock and anger. Iran, you shut up. I'm just telling the truth. Iran had indeed lost his mind. No one knew how long he had waited for this day and how much he had sacrificed. He had always thought that the position of young master was his and could not be changed. But today he had been forcefully robbed of his ancestor's golden feather and failed to open his meridians. He was clearly the one who had suffered a loss, but the clan leader and the others had been siding with that bastard. Now, the clan leader said that he was not qualified to compete for the position of young master. How could he endure it any longer? No matter how powerful it is, it has only opened its third meridian now. I opened my fourth meridian and was messed up by it, but you don't care at all. How can there be such logic in this world? Iran was filled with anger. He was not convinced. He was unwilling. Hey Iran, watch your words. Dumpling is already the bloodline of our Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. Whether it opened its meridians consecutively or not, you can't humiliate it like this. Elder EU reminded him. He no longer had the usual smile on his face. It was obvious that he was very dissatisfied with Iran's words. Iran was used to being arrogant and had never taken others seriously. But he would more or less restrain himself and would never be so presumptuous. Clan leader, Iran's brain is muddled from anger. I'll take him back now. Elder Yi Gong hurriedly tried to save him. However, Yi Zhao raised his hand. No need. What you said is not without reason. Iran should be given an explanation for this matter. Elder Yi Gong's voice stopped abruptly. For some reason when he heard this he did not feel the slightest bit of joy. Only uneasiness surged into his heart. Iran clenched his fists tightly with a furious expression. Yi Zhao sized him up and suddenly asked, "Are you not convinced? A junior who opened his third meridian stole your chance to break through? Do you think you're better than it?" Iran did not say anything, but it was obvious that he agreed. Yi Zhao suddenly raised his eyebrows. Then what if it also opened its fourth meridian? Iran's expression suddenly froze. Yi Zhao raised his chin. Iran turned around and immediately widened his eyes. That ancestral golden feather had not disappeared yet. Digression. 6 o'clock mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 1590. At this moment the sky above Fenghuang Valley was filled with dark clouds that moved with the wind. All of the heavenly lightning within had already descended. At this moment, it was completely clean, leaving behind only darkness. Only the reddish gold flame in the sky was still burning silently. One could vaguely see a blurry silhouette within. The ancestor's golden feather was hanging in front of it, as if it was waiting for something. It's going to continue? In the square in front of the Phoenix Shrine, everyone's faces were once again filled with shock. Opening meridians consecutively was one thing, but to open the fourth meridian directly. Wasn't this too crazy? Elder Yi Gong was in a daze as he looked at the scene in the distance. His mind was in a complete mess. Didn't it just break through to the reddish gold heavenly phoenix? Logically speaking, it would take at least 100 years to open the third meridian. Not to mention the fourth meridian. But now all these things had happened at the same time. And this was under the condition that it had contracted with a mere exalted god. How did it do it? It wasn't just him, even Elder Yi Shang and the others couldn't help but gasp at this moment. They had long thought that Dumpling's talent should be quite good and should be stronger than many people in the clan. But they didn't expect the result to be so shocking. Opening meridians consecutively was already extremely rare, let alone opening the first meridian to the fourth meridian. It was almost unheard of. Iran clenched his teeth as if something was crazily surging in his heart. It's still unknown whether it will succeed. If we force it, it might end up in vain. In the past there were people who forcefully opened meridians in the clan, but without exception they didn't end up well. It wasn't that easy to open meridians. Without accumulation, without preparation to act so rashly, how could it be so easy? Hearing that, Elder EU glanced at him and couldn't help but laugh. Some people really wouldn't give up until they reached the Yellow River. They wouldn't turn back until they hit a wall. Yi Gong's face was ashen, and only Yi Ran was left holding on to the last bit of wishful thinking. Regardless of whether Dumpling could continue to open meridians, she had already displayed talent that surpassed all the younger generation. Elder EU shook his head. With such a temperament, she wouldn't be able to achieve great things. If Yi Ran became the young master of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan, that would be the clan's misfortune. He quickly retracted his gaze and looked at Fenghuang Valley again. Time passed slowly and it seemed exceptionally long. Countless pairs of eyes were looking at the same spot. They were all waiting for the ancestors' golden feathers' actions. However, even after a long while, it remained motionless in the air. Yi Ran sneered in his heart. As he had said, the fourth meridian was not that easy to open. If there was still no reaction from the ancestor gold feather after a while, it would prove that it would definitely lose this time. Sure enough, it didn't take long for the ancestral golden feather to start trembling. Some people secretly looked at each other and heaved a sigh of relief. If that crimson gold heavenly phoenix really directly opened the fourth meridian, then they would really have no face at all. To think that they had looked down on the other party previously. In the blink of an eye, the other party had trampled all of them under his feet. Even if she couldn't open her fourth meridian, her talent at such a young age was already beyond their reach. Yi Zhao's brows furrowed imperceptibly as a trace of disappointment appeared in his heart. He didn't have much hope, but Dumpling's performance surprised him. Naturally, he thought that she could continue to break through and open her fourth meridian. But now it seemed like it would be difficult. Everyone was like that. Without hope, there was no disappointment. However, the current situation had exceeded his expectations. After a short period of depression, he regained his composure. Even if Dumpling had only opened 3 meridians, she was still very competitive in today's ancestral worship ceremony. Bang. At that moment, a strange cracking sound came from the depths of Fenghuang Valley. Then a slender and exquisite figure leaped out from the undulating mountain range. Yi Zhao and the rest were stunned. Sheng Guanyu. They had been so focused on Dumpling that they had forgotten that Sheng Guanyu was there too. The wind whistled and her clothes fluttered in the wind. Her black hair danced in the wind and she looked cool and unrestrained. She moved and dashed to the side of the reddish-gold flame. Thus, it became the scene of Ancestor Jin Yu before Dumpling and her after Dumpling. Why did she go over? Elder Yishang tensed up. Dumpling was at the crucial moment of opening her meridians, and there couldn't be any mistakes. If she went over now, she might disturb it. Should we let her come over? Elder Yishang turned to look at Yi Zhao. As the clan leader, Yi Zhao's power and ability were undoubtedly the strongest here. If he was willing to help, he could bring Shangguan Hui back without disturbing Dumpling. Yi Zhao pondered for a moment when he heard this, but he shook his head. Let's wait and see. Elder Yishang was a little surprised. Why did the clan leader seem to trust Shangguan Yu? Elder Yu nudged him with his elbow and lowered his voice. If you ask me, Dumpling is still Shangguan Yu's contracted divine beast. She wouldn't do anything to harm Dumpling. Don't worry. Elder Yishang nodded hesitantly when he heard this. Based on what had happened before, Shangguan Yu did indeed treat Dumpling well. But, did the clan leader think the same way? Since when did he trust Shangguan Yu so much? Dumpling. A strong wind blew and violent energy surged in all directions. Chu Liwei managed to stabilize herself and looked at the burning flame in front of her. Dumpling, let me help you. Earlier she had been waiting below to watch. When she saw that Dumpling had successfully opened her 3rd meridian, she was naturally very happy. She thought that the matter would be over, but who would have thought that Dumpling would try to open her 4th meridian? I didn't discuss this with her before. But now wasn't the time to talk about this. Sensing that Dumpling's strength seemed to be unable to cope, Chu Liwei rushed up without thinking. Dumpling didn't respond. Chu Liwei pursed her lips and closed her eyes. Boom! A reddish-gold flame surged out from her palm. She had a contract with Dumpling, so she could naturally convert the force in her body into the crimson gold Sky Phoenix clan's flame. Then she waved her hand and the flame quickly flew out and merged into the ball of fire. Chu Liyue's strength began to be consumed rapidly. The reddish gold feather that had been trembling but unable to move finally moved. It slowly but firmly drew the third meridian. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1591. This time the reddish gold feather moved very slowly. It was completely different from the previous 2 times when it moved so smoothly. But it still moved in the end. Looking at it gently moving in the air, the square in front of the Phoenix Shrine fell into a short silence. Then all kinds of noises and discussions erupted. Ancestor Jinyu actually moved. Shengguanyu really helped. Yes. I think it was after she helped that Ancestor Jinyu officially started to open meridians. I thought that the 4th meridian couldn't be opened. Didn't they say that she's just a high god now? Logically speaking, she shouldn't be that capable, right? Who knows? More importantly, a human helping to open meridians. What's going on? Everyone was discussing animatedly. They were obviously shocked by this scene. They never thought that Ancestor Jinyu would actually continue to open meridians with the help of a human. No one would believe it even if they told others about it. Iran was stunned on the spot. His expression was sluggish and the mocking smile on his face had yet to fade. At this moment he looked extremely awkward and strange. Everything that happened before his eyes was beyond his expectations. Just a moment ago he was still waiting to see Shengguanyu and that bastard make a fool of himself. Who knew that in the blink of an eye, the situation would turn around? Of course he couldn't accept it and he wasn't willing to accept it. Therefore he could only stand there stiffly as if his soul had been sucked away. Elder Yi Gong wasn't any better than him. At this moment there was only one thought in his mind. It's over. Only Yi Zhao stared intently at that side. There seemed to be stars flickering in his eyes. This 4th meridian was indeed much more difficult than before. The energy in Chu Liyue's body was rapidly depleting, but Dumpling didn't move at all. If not for the fact that Chu Liyue could feel its aura, she would have thought that something had happened to it. Her eyes were burning as she stared at that ball of flame. The reddish gold light splashed. She could only vaguely see a blurry outline but not its specific appearance. It should be waiting for an opportunity to transform into a human. Chu Liyue pondered in her heart. In fact, she was also very curious. Dumpling had been with her for many years and was like family to her. But before that she had never thought about what Tuanzi would look like when she transformed into a human being. Continuously opening her meridians and transforming into a human form, Dumpling had done what others had done for hundreds of years in just a month. Naturally it would consume more time and energy. Suddenly a faint sound came from the flames. Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat, but she suddenly felt a gentle force coming from it, and then she was pushed a distance away. This was Dumpling's aura. Chu Liyue only hesitated for a moment before retreating along with this force. It wasn't until they were quite a distance away that they finally stopped. She retracted her power and looked up at Dumpling. At this moment, the reddish gold feather finally finished drawing the complete pattern. 4th meridian, open. At this moment, everyone in front of the Phoenix Shrine fell silent. Iran's legs went weak and he fell to the ground, his face pale. Elder Yi Gong's body swayed and his vision turned black. Elder Yi couldn't help but take a few steps forward, his face full of excitement, and he punched his own palm. It's done. Although Yi Zhao didn't move or speak, the expression in his eyes had changed greatly. The usual indifference and disdain had faded away, and what replaced it was unconcealed joy and excitement. Elder Yi Shang was stunned for a moment, and then he couldn't help but shake his head and laugh. She actually, really did it. The purest bloodline is indeed extraordinary. He didn't deliberately lower his voice so many people around heard it. For a moment several pairs of eyes looked over in disbelief. Did I hear wrongly? Iran also looked as if he was struck by lightning. He stiffly raised his neck and said in a hoarse voice, "Purest bloodline?" Elder Yi Shang looked at him with a smile as if he was a little surprised. "Why didn't your master tell you before?" On the day Dumpling returned, we already knew that she had the purest bloodline. Iran's ears buzzed and his vision turned white. It was as if a sharp hammer was constantly pounding on his head. causing him great pain and making him dizzy. He glanced at Elder Yi Gong. Elder Yi Gong's face was expressionless and he slowly closed his eyes. This was the last straw that broke the camel's back. Iran lowered his head and was silent for a while, then he laughed softly. He was laughing at himself. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. What a disgrace. He thought that the position of young master was secure. But it turned out that they already had someone else in mind. The purest bloodline. What did he have to fight with the other party? His only advantage had been overtaken at that moment. He laughed and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. It kept flowing and soon the front of his shirt was dyed red. But at this moment no one cared about him. Everyone's attention was on Dumpling. The purest bloodline. That was almost an existence that only existed in legends. They didn't expect it to appear like this today. No wonder it could open meridians consecutively. No wonder it could open the fourth meridian directly. After this, who could compete with it? The burning flames were gradually swallowed by Dumpling. Its figure gradually appeared. Chu Liyue's hands unconsciously clenched in his sleeves, and his eyes didn't blink for fear of missing something. Dumpling, what would it be like? At this moment, a chubby, white and tender little hand suddenly reached out from the flames. Digression. Hong Xiao is piking in February. I hope everyone can support her. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1592. Immediately after, a small figure emerged from the flames. Chu Liyue widened her eyes slightly. It was a child who looked to be about 3 or 4 years old. Her skin was as white as snow, and her eyes were as black as grapes. Her eyelashes were long and thick, and her lips were as red as the most delicate rose petals. She was extremely adorable. She had 2 round buns on her head, tied up with a crimson hair tie. 2 golden bells were strung on each rope. When she shook her head, a crisp bell sound could be heard. She was wearing an exquisitely tailored lotus leaf dress. The entire lotus leaf dress gradually changed color. The bottom was crimson and the top gradually turned golden. The color was rich and vibrant, bright and resplendent. Under the sunlight there were even specks of starlight twinkling. From afar it looked like a cluster of burning flames. Heh! She raised her chubby little hand and rubbed her eyes. She yawned as if she had just woken up. There was silence between heaven and earth. Chu Liyue was also stunned. A girl. More importantly, she was so young. As if sensing her gaze, Dumpling put down her hand and looked in her direction. When she saw her face clearly, a huge smile bloomed on her round snow-white little face. You. Her eyes were bright and her voice was crisp. Her eyes seemed to be filled with a galaxy of stars. Then she opened her arms wide and ran towards them. Her 2 little feet were bare and they looked clean and cute. However, she was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, she was already in front of Chu Liyue. She directly jumped into her arms. Before Chu Liyue could react, she instinctively reached out and there was a ball of chubby little thing in her arms. You. Dumpling dragged out her name and called her with a strong sense of coquettishness. Chu Liyue's heart instantly melted into a ball. She lowered her head and looked in her arms. The corners of her lips could not help but curl up. Dumpling had always been thick-skinned. She had always thought. She did not expect it to be such a beautiful and cute little girl. Dumpling? Chu Liyue tried to shout, but his voice was much gentler than before. It was clearly the same name, but when he saw this small one he felt completely different. Hearing her voice, Dumpling looked up and blinked. Chu Liyue couldn't hold back. He held her little face and kissed her. Instantly he felt comfortable. So soft. How fragrant. So cute. Tuanzi blushed, but it was elated. It almost jumped up in Chu Liyue's arms as it stretched out its 2 short arms and hugged Chu Liyue's neck. Then it quickly kissed Chu Liyue's cheek and buried its head in Chu Liyue's shoulders at an even faster speed. Dumpling loves you the most. One of her head was rubbing against the other while the other was rubbing against the other. Chu Liyue couldn't help laughing. Even though her appearance had changed greatly, the fact that she liked to snuggle in her shoulder was exactly the same as before. Chu Liyue changed her position and hugged her more comfortably. She couldn't help but sigh in her heart. Girls were indeed different from boys. This was Debao. Hey. Let's go back and meet the clan leader? Chu Liwei asked as she glanced in the direction of the Phoenix Shrine. Even though they were still some distance away, it was obvious that those people were looking in their direction. Dumpling had finally transformed into a human and opened her fourth meridian. It was only right for her to make a trip. Dumpling hugged her and nodded vigorously. I'll go with you. The dark clouds in the sky gradually dispersed and the wind died down. After a month of riots, Fenghuang Valley finally regained its peace. It would be better if one ignored the messy scene. Chu Liwei coughed guiltily as she looked at the mountain wall that was charred black from the lightning strikes and the light balls that were scattered all over the place due to the violent force. She had smashed the place where they slept. She hoped that they would overlook this matter on account of her helping Dumpling. Chu Liwei hugged Dumpling even tighter. She took a step and headed straight for the Phoenix Shrine. Seeing that one person, no, the two of them, one big and one small, the countless people waiting in the plaza didn't seem to have reacted yet. Chu Liwei landed with Dumpling in her arms. She didn't care about the gazes around her and greeted Yi Zhao with a smile. Clan leader Yi Zhao. Yi Zhao's eyes were fixed on Dumpling. Her emotions were in turmoil. Because she was still young, Dumpling looked like a doll when she transformed into human form. The entire Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan had transformed into human form after reaching 100 years old. At the very least, they looked like they were in their teens. She was the first one as young as Dumpling. It was no wonder that everyone was so shocked. Dumpling? Yi Zhao spoke carefully. His voice was unusually gentle, as if he was afraid of scaring Dumpling. Dumpling heard him and lifted her head from Chu Liue's shoulder to look back. She tilted her head and blinked her large, grape-like eyes. Yi Zhao felt an indescribable feeling in his heart. He waved his hand and his expression became even gentler. There was even a hint of undetectable adoration. Dumpling, come here. Dumpling snorted and hugged Chu Liue again. She didn't want to go over. She only wanted to be with Ayu. After being rejected by Dumpling in public, Yi Zhao felt awkward. However, there wasn't a hint of anger on his face. He only rubbed his hands together helplessly, as if he didn't know how to deal with this situation. Chu Liue laughed in her heart and patted Dumpling's back gently. Dumpling. No matter what, she was still the clan leader of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. You're not giving her any face. Dumpling glanced at Chu Liue and pouted. However, she couldn't change her mind. She jumped down from her arms and took a few steps forward. As she moved, the bells on her two round hair buns jingled. The hem of her lotus leaf dress swayed. Her white and chubby feet were faintly discernible. It was very cute. She walked to Yi Zhao and stood in front of him. She couldn't help but look back at Chu Liue. Chu Liue raised her chin. Dumpling crossed her hands in front of her and bowed obediently. Dumpling greets the clan leader. She was very small and round. When she bowed so seriously, she looked even more charmingly naive. Yi Zhao quickly took a step forward and reached out to help her. Hey. Get up quickly. Before his hand could reach her, Dumpling had already straightened up quickly. Her movements were smooth and natural. Yi Zhao's hand froze in midair. He smiled embarrassedly and retracted his hand. But, Dumpling, you, he paused hesitantly as if he didn't know what to say. The scene fell into an awkward silence. Chu Liue looked at this scene and raised her eyebrows slowly. Clan leader Yi Zhao is actually a little afraid of Dumpling losing her temper? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1593. That was really strange. One had to know that the leader of the Crimson Gold Heavenly Phoenix clan was very unyielding and arrogant. Not to mention the humans, even the elders and juniors around him were as obedient as quails in front of him. She could be considered to have interacted with him before. To put it nicely, he was a man of his word and extremely proud. To put it bluntly, he was very self-centered and prideful. However, such a person was humiliated in front of Dumpling, yet, he wasn't angry? Not only was he not angry, but he even seemed to be thinking about how to make Dumpling happy? Chu Liue sized up Yi Zhao without batting an eyelid. When he saw his hands clenched together nervously and the stiff smile on his face, he almost laughed out loud. Then, Yi Zhao held it in for a long time before he finally opened his mouth. However, just as he said a word, Dumpling said in a crisp voice. Since there's nothing else, I'll go back first, clan leader. Yi Zhao's remaining words were stuck in his throat. Everyone held their breaths. This Dumpling was too arrogant. The last person who dared to be so rude to the clan leader had long been reduced to ashes. She probably couldn't avoid being punished. However, just when everyone was waiting to see how Yi Zhao would punish Tuanzi, he coughed and said slowly, I'm sorry. Then you can go, thank you, clan leader. Dumpling thanked him, hurriedly turned around and ran back to Chu Liyue's side. Everyone was dumbfounded. Just like that. The clan leader didn't intend to punish her at all? Yi Zhao, however, was thinking about something else. When Dumpling faced him just now, her little face was cold. However, as soon as she turned around, the corners of her mouth were already blooming with a big smile. Needless to say, that smile was only directed at Shangguanyu. Looking at the bouncing little figure, Yi Zhao felt extremely uncomfortable in his heart. Logically speaking, since Dumpling had taken human form and had already opened her fourth meridian, her feelings for her race should be even deeper. But, from the way she acted just now, it was obvious that she was still brooding over the previous incident. At this moment he felt a little regretful. The way he treated Shangguanyu and Dumpling back then seemed to have been a little too forceful. If they had sat down and talked things over from the start, Dumpling would not have been so against them. However, it was already too late to realize this now. Ah, you. Dumpling ran back and grabbed Chu Liyue's hand. Chu Liyue held her soft and chubby hand, but her eyes were still on Yi Zhao as she smiled and said, Don't worry. Clan leader Yi Zhao, the bet counts as my win, right? Yi Zhao snapped out of his daze and looked at her with a complicated gaze. Even if he did not want to admit it, he knew that it was the truth. The woman in front of him had indeed helped Dumpling take human form within a month. She had even helped Dumpling open her fourth meridian. Everyone had witnessed it. It was absolutely true. She had to admit what she had done no matter what. Seeing Dumpling leaning on him, Yi Zhao could not help but let out a long sigh. You win. I'm willing to accept my loss. There's no need to cancel the contract between you and Dumpling. If it wants to follow you in the future, then it's up to her. Yi Zhao said word by word. His voice seemed to be even lower than usual. And this sentence was like a clap of thunder, exploding in everyone's ears. Almost instantly, everyone widened their eyes in shock and looked at Yi Zhao in disbelief. Apart from Yi Zhao and the 5 elders, the rest of the people didn't know about this bet. So when they heard it, their reaction was naturally huge. Didn't the clan leader hate humans to the core? Now he actually agreed to let Dumpling follow Shangguanyu in the future, and there was no need to cancel the contract. Only Elder Yi Gong seemed to have thought of something and his eyes lit up. Clan leader. When Elder Yi Shang heard this, he could not help but speak up. He frowned slightly and felt a little worried. How could this matter be settled just like that? Dumpling had the purest bloodline, and she had even opened her fourth meridian today. With such talent, she was destined to be the best choice for the young master. If she still maintained the contract with Shangguanyu, how could she take the position of the young master? When they made the bet, they did not expect the purest bloodline to be so powerful. On the other hand, they did not expect Shangguanyu to be able to do it. But now, Dumpling had successfully taken human form and opened her fourth meridian. It could be said that there was no one in the younger generation who could compare to her. But she had to continue following Shangguanyu. To them, this was truly too great of a loss. Yi Zhao frowned slightly and his eyes darkened. Our clan always keeps our promises. We will never go back on our words. Clan leader is right. After being silent for a long time, Elder Yi Gong suddenly spoke up. This bet was personally proposed by the clan leader. If we were to break the bet just because the other party won, it would be too embarrassing. If this matter spreads, where will our Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan's face go? Elder Yi Shang looked at him coldly. Did he see hope and come out to jump around again? As expected, he did not give up. Elder Yi Gong did not care about his disdain. He was in a good mood now. When he saw that Dumpling had successfully opened her fourth meridian, he thought that the position of the young master would be hers. But when Shangguanyu mentioned the bet, he remembered that it was because Dumpling had succeeded that she did not have the right to take the young master's position. The previous worry and despair was a waste of emotions. The Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan would never accept a bloodline that had contracted with a human to be the young master. Thinking of this, Yi Gong's gaze turned slightly and looked at Yi Ran. A trace of disappointment and contempt flashed across his eyes. Mud could not support a wall. He had spent so many years nurturing him, but in the end he was inexperienced. From now on, Yi Ran was basically useless. It seemed that he had to find someone better. However, the most important thing now was to postpone the selection of the young master. Clan leader, too many things have happened today. I think we should postpone the selection of the young master for the time being. Why don't we wait for a period of time when everyone has calmed down and is ready? Or we can just wait for the next ancestral worship ceremony, Elder Yi Shang said in a deep voice. The ancestral worship ceremony is held once every 100 years. Moreover, everyone in the clan has put in a lot of effort for today's young master selection. How can we postpone it just like that? Elder Yi Gong smiled in an unconcerned manner. What else can we do? In the current situation, Yi Shang, do you think we can continue? There's no need to continue. Yi Zhao suddenly spoke and interrupted the argument between the two. Elder Yi Gong's lips curled slightly. Clan leader is wise. However, Yi Zhao's next sentence made his proud and complacent expression instantly freeze on his face. Because I already have the best candidate. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from the Love Network. Chapter 1594. Yi Zhao raised his eyes slightly and looked at Dumpling. Sensing his gaze, everyone was stunned for a moment. Elder Yi Gong felt a strong sense of uneasiness in his heart. Clan leader. Yi Zhao ignored him and continued. Although Dumpling is still young, she has a pure bloodline. Moreover, she has already taken human form and opened her fourth meridian. She is fully deserving of the position of young master. As soon as he finished speaking, the entire square fell into dead silence. Even Chu Liyue could not hide her shock as she raised her head and looked at Yi Zhao. He actually appointed Dumpling as the young master of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan? Is this really not a joke? Actually, it was not that Tu Liyue had not thought about this. To be fair, the bloodline and talent that Dumpling had displayed could definitely crush all the competitors present. However, even if others did not say it, Chu Liyue herself understood that Dumpling had a contract with her, so the position of young master was like the moon in the water, a flower in the mirror. If she were the clan leader of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan, she would also directly kick Dumpling out of the candidates. However, she did not expect Yi Zhao to make such a shocking choice. Isn't he worried that he will be ridiculed by the world? Isn't he worried that I will instigate Dumpling to do something that is not beneficial to the clan? There's more. His actions will definitely bring more problems than that. However, his expression was calm, as if he did not hesitate at all. Dumpling grabbed her hand and blinked as if she did not understand what was going on. Seeing that the atmosphere around her was a little strange, she did not care much and touched her bun in boredom. She was not interested in the position of young master. He just wanted to be with Ayu. When can I leave? Sensing Dumpling's thoughts, Chu Liyue's eyelids twitched. Leave? I'm afraid I won't be able to leave today. Patriarch, this matter concerns the selection of the young master. You must reconsider. Elder Yi Gong took a deep breath and calmed himself down with great difficulty. However, his anxious expression and tone revealed that he was not as calm as he appeared to be. Dumpling's talent is not bad, but don't forget that she has a contract with a human. If that's the case, how can he take on the great responsibility of being the young lord? Wouldn't that mean that their entire Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan would become Shangguan Yu's slaves? He absolutely could not agree to this. Even Elder Yi Shang, who had always stood on the opposite side of Elder Yi Gong, frowned. After thinking for a long time, he spoke. Great Elder's words are not without reason. Patriarch, this is a matter of great importance. Why don't you reconsider? However, Yi Zhao was very determined. He glanced at the two of them. The so-called young master is the most outstanding one selected from the younger generation. Don't tell me you have a more suitable candidate than Dumpling? If you can find someone more powerful than her today, I will change my mind. Everyone was speechless. What else could they do? Even Iran couldn't compete with Tuanzi, not to mention the rest. Pure bloodline, how many years did it take for one to appear? How could they compare? But Patriarch, as the young master, you have to shoulder a heavy responsibility. She can come and go as she pleases in the clan and do whatever she wants. She can even be promoted to an elder when she opens her 6th meridian in the future. However, the position of young master, she's really not suitable. Elder Yishang said earnestly. Of course, he also liked Dumpling. After so many years, this was the first time he saw a pure bloodline with his own eyes. In the short period of 1 month, Tuanzi's talent and strength were far beyond their initial expectations. It was indeed a great blessing for the clan to have a pure bloodline descending. However, she had formed a contract with Shangguanyu. If she really became the young master and became the patriarch in the future, there would always be a Shangguanyu beside her. What would that be like? Elder Yi Gong took a step forward and argued. Patriarch, there are many outstanding juniors in the clan. Perhaps no one can compare to her today, but it doesn't mean that there won't be anyone in the future. It's too rash of you to choose her as the young master. In any case, he had already embarrassed himself today and offended the patriarch more than once. In that case, one more time wouldn't make a difference. No matter what, he could not let the position of young master be taken away today. Yi Zhao narrowed his eyes. The remaining 2 elders could not help but speak up to dissuade him. What they said was almost the same and they were all against it. Only Elder Yu stood at the side with his arms crossed as if he was thinking about something. Although the others in the square did not speak, their expressions were clear. Of course, they were unwilling to agree. Even if they chose someone who was not that powerful, they did not want someone who had formed a contract with a human to be the young master. The huge square fell into a stalemate. Chu Liwei lowered her eyes and glanced at Dumpling. Dumpling sensed her gaze and looked up as well. Dumpling, do you want to be the young master? Chu Liwei asked in her heart. Dumpling paused in the act of fiddling with her hair and looked at her blankly. If I become the young master, can I still be with Ayu? Chu Liwei pursed her lips and looked at her eyes that were as clear as black grapes. He did not know how to answer. Dumpling, on the other hand, was thinking. She vaguely understood some of it just now. These people refused to let her be the young master because she had formed a contract with Ayu. If she wanted to be the young master, she would have to break the contract. Then what was there to be? Dumpling shook her head. I didn't do it properly. Chu Liwei sighed in her heart. Then, you still have to participate in the ancestral worship ceremony according to the procedures. I saw that they all went to take the test. Why don't you go too? When things here are over, we'll leave, okay? Digression. 6 o'clock mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 1595. She insisted on bringing Dumpling back because she wanted her to acknowledge her ancestors and have a home in the future. Although it was still unknown whether this place could be called a home, she still had to acknowledge her ancestors. Otherwise, wouldn't this trip be a waste? When Dumpling heard that she could leave, she was instantly overjoyed. It didn't matter if she went through the process. Anyway, it would be best if she could leave in the end. Chu Liwei patted her head and looked at the few people who were still in a stalemate. Clan leader Yi Zhao, thank you for your kindness. It's just that Dumpling is still young and she should be following me for a long time. I'm afraid that she won't be able to bear the position of young master. You should take back your order. Countless pairs of eyes fell on her with complicated emotions. Actually, other than Dumpling, the one who benefited the most from this matter was Shangguanyu. She was the owner of Tuanzi's contract. If Tuanzi really became the young master, her status would naturally rise as well. Not to mention, Dumpling would become the clan leader in the future. When that time came, she would be able to do whatever she wanted in Phoenix Mountain. Everyone listened to Dumpling, and Dumpling was extremely loyal to her. It was almost equivalent to the entire Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan becoming her powerful backing. Shangguanyu would definitely understand this. However, she still rejected it so straightforwardly. Yi Zhao frowned slightly as he looked at her. The feelings in his heart quietly changed. This Shangguanyu was indeed different from the rest of the humans. With such a huge temptation in front of them, how many people in the world could reject it? Based on how dependent and intimate Dumpling was with her, as long as she let Dumpling fight for it, Dumpling would definitely agree without hesitation. However, she didn't do that. Instead, she rejected it on behalf of Dumpling. The depths of her black jade-like eyes were clear. It was clean and clear without the slightest bit of falsehood or reluctance. She really didn't seem to care about these things. Yishao calmed down. Dumpling thinks so too? Chu Luiyue smiled and looked down at Dumpling. Dumpling raised her head and said in a clear voice, "What's so good about being a young lord? I want to follow you." Her expression was pure and unrestrained. It could be seen that every word she said came from her heart. Chu Luiyue was touched and gently exhaled. In fact, Dumpling looked young, but in fact she had been with her for many years. There were many things that she knew. However, she still made this choice without hesitation. How could she not be moved? Fortunately, the matter here should be resolved soon. When the time came, she would leave with Dumpling. In the future, he would be able to relax. Everyone had different expressions when they heard Dumpling's words. Many people secretly exchanged glances. Some felt that it was a pity, some looked down on it, some mocked it, and some disapproved. Without a doubt, in their eyes, Dumpling voluntarily gave up the position of young lord in order to continue being with Shangguanyu. It was too stupid. So many people yearned for it, but she abandoned it like a worn-out shoe. He was really incurable. Elder Yi Gong suddenly heaved a sigh of relief. Clan leader, Dumpling said so herself. Do you still insist? Elder Yi Shang looked deeply at Chu Luiyue. He didn't know what kind of ability this woman had to make Dumpling follow her so willingly. She even gave up such a precious opportunity. It was a pity that the purest bloodline couldn't become the young lord. Yi Zhao was silent for a long time before he finally said, "Since you don't want to, it's up to you." These words were naturally directed at Dumpling. Many people felt conflicted when they heard this. The clan leader really liked Dumpling. He even said such words. He couldn't wait to offer the position of young lord to her with both hands. However, Dumpling only said that she didn't want it and didn't give him any face at all. He actually didn't get angry. In the end, he just regretfully put away his thoughts. If it were anyone else present who would receive half the treatment. However, there were some who were more open-minded. After all, the purest bloodline was different. They couldn't compare to Dumpling in the first place, so it was normal for the clan leader to be biased. Weren't they especially tolerant of Iran in the past? It was just that Dumpling had a contract with the human race. Clan leader Yi Zhao, you know best why I brought Dumpling back this time. Since the bet has been completed, then I also hope that Dumpling can successfully participate in the ancestral worship ceremony and officially return to the clan. Chu Luiyue stated her request simply. Yi Zhao didn't object. Although she couldn't become the young lord, Dumpling had the purest bloodline of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan, which was rare in 1,000 years. No matter what, she should return. I have the same intention. Yi Zhao hid the regret in his heart and raised his finger to point at the totem in the middle of the square. Dumpling, everyone in front is almost done with the test. You can go directly. In fact, everyone had seen Dumpling open her fourth meridian with their own eyes. This test was indeed just a formality. Seeing that the clan leader was going to drop the matter, many people secretly heaved a sigh of relief. The atmosphere finally became less tense. Dumpling didn't care about that and walked over with her short legs. A pair of white bare feet stepped directly on the totem. Then she lowered her head to take a look. Yi Zhao reminded her. Just inject the flame in your body directly into it. From the looks of it, he couldn't wait to personally guide her. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but lower her head and almost burst out laughing. If it was a month ago, she would never have thought that this cold-hearted clan leader would actually be like this. No matter what, he clearly treated Dumpling as a big treasure. It was a kind of holding in the hand afraid of dropping, holding in the mouth afraid of melting feeling. Thinking back to how strict he was towards her and Dumpling when they first arrived, it was a stark contrast to now. Fortunately, Dumpling was going to leave with her after the ancestral worship ceremony. If she really stayed here in the future, how much would clan leader Yi Zhao spoil her? Chu Luiyue felt tired for everyone present just thinking about it. Dumpling was very smart and understood at once. She raised her meaty little hand. Boom! A ball of reddish gold flame suddenly appeared. The surrounding temperature also rose at this moment. Quite a few people revealed looks of astonishment. The flame of the purest bloodline seemed to be even purer and hotter than theirs. Whoosh. With a slight sound, the first flame on the totem was instantly ignited. Elder Yishang's expression changed slightly. So fast. This totem's reaction seemed to be much more sensitive than the ones tested previously. As soon as he finished speaking, the second flame was ignited. And then the third. The surrounding noises gradually disappeared, and everyone's gaze was unconsciously attracted to that direction. When Chu Liwei looked up, she saw the fourth flame ignite with a whoosh. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1596. Chu Liwei was also shocked. She thought that the test would take a long time, but she didn't expect it to be so fast. She lowered her head and held back her laughter, and it was over just like that. Looking at the 4 burning flames, Chu Liwei fell into deep thought. Did I take this too seriously just now? To Dumpling, it seems like it's just a piece of cake. Dumpling also seemed a little surprised. She lowered her head and stared at the flames on the totem. She stretched out her small hand and counted seriously. 1, 2, 3, 4. After counting, she retracted her hand. It seems to be over? She raised her head and glanced at Yishao. Clan leader, can I leave now? Yishao was stunned. What? Oh, The test is over and you've officially returned to the clan. If you want to leave, that's not a problem. Although he was very reluctant, he had already said those words before, so of course he couldn't go back on his words. Dumpling smiled in satisfaction. With a thought, the flames on her small hand quickly disappeared. She turned around and ran towards Chu Liwei. Bang. Before Dumpling could run 2 steps, she suddenly bumped into a transparent barrier that suddenly appeared. She didn't notice and bumped into it. Ouch. Dumpling fell on her butt and sat on the ground. She wrinkled her little face and rubbed her nose subconsciously. Ouch, it hurts. Dumpling. Chu Liwei was also shocked. She quickly went forward and wanted to bring Dumpling back. However, when he took a closer look, he saw that Tuanzi had been enveloped by a semi-spherical transparent enchantment, and she was trapped inside and couldn't get out. This sudden turn of events caused everyone else present to be abruptly stunned. Looking at Dumpling sitting pitifully on the ground, Chu Liue's heart ached. She immediately wanted to go over. However, when she was about 10 steps away from the barrier, she could already feel an indescribably powerful pressure descending upon her. Her heart skipped a beat. This was coming from the barrier. With her current strength, it would be difficult to go over. Chu Liwei frowned and looked at Yishao. Clan leader Yishao, what's going on? However, Yishao's expression was very strange. He didn't answer Chu Liue's question as he stared at the transparent barrier that suddenly appeared in shock. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Chu Liwei suddenly realized that something was amiss. To be able to make Yishao reveal such an expression, this matter was probably not simple. She almost subconsciously looked at the few elders beside her. Sure enough, she saw that their expressions were almost exactly the same as Yishao's. It was as if they had seen an unbelievable scene. In the midst of shock, there was an indescribable excitement and agitation. Excitement, agitation, buzz. Before Chu Liwei could figure it out, she heard a buzzing sound coming from the barrier. She immediately turned her head to look. She saw that at the top of the transparent barrier, a reddish-gold flowing light suddenly flew out. The flowing light scattered and quickly outlined a strange picture on the barrier. The surrounding sounds all disappeared at this moment. An indescribable heavy pressure poured out from the barrier again. Chu Liwei suddenly felt a buzzing sound in her ears. It was as if there was a strange sound coming from a distant time and space. She couldn't help but frown. She circulated the force in her body, trying to isolate the sound. However, she soon realized that it was useless. The sound was faintly discernible. It was as if someone was chanting in a low voice. It was light and heavy, loud and deep. It made people subconsciously submit to it. Chu Liwei inadvertently looked to the side and was suddenly stunned. Because at this moment, everyone in the square was looking at the transparent barrier with a dignified and respectful expression. Their eyes were full of undisguised deep respect and admiration. Then she heard Yishao's voice. Welcome, Ancestor's spirit. His voice was always deep and powerful. However, at this moment it was full of respect and even trembling slightly. Chu Luiwei glanced over. Yizhao actually placed a hand on his chest and bowed his head respectfully. As for the 5 elders beside him, they all knelt down in unison. Welcome, ancestors' spirit. Following their movements in the huge square, except for Yizhao and Chu Luiwei, the rest of the people actually knelt down. Welcome, ancestors' spirit. Their voices were uniform and could not hide their excitement. Chu Luiwei sucked in a breath of cold air. What are they doing? The Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan was an ancient divine beast and had always been extremely arrogant. Usually when they spoke they would almost always raise their chins. However, at this moment they actually knelt down in unison. Chu Luiwei quickly looked at the transparent barrier again. This time she finally saw the red and gold flowing light clearly. It clearly formed a huge Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan's totem. The flowing light was resplendent and dazzling. Chu Luiwei opened her mouth but did not know what to say. She vaguely guessed something in her heart but she was not too sure. Dumpling, who was trapped in the barrier, finally realized that something was wrong. She stopped rubbing her nose and looked up. She tilted her head slightly. Her grape-like big eyes were filled with doubt. Didn't they say that it was just a test? The test is already over. Why aren't they letting me go? However, this aura is very familiar. Dumpling wrinkled her nose and stood up. She bit her finger and stared at the totem above her head for a long time. Then the totem floated down from the transparent barrier. The closer it got, the smaller it became. Finally, it landed in between Dumpling's eyebrows. Chapter 1597. On Dumpling's smooth and fair forehead, a red and gold totem the size of a fingernail appeared. The golden light was dazzling and dazzling. It made her chubby and fair face look even more exquisite and cute. Although Dumpling's entire body was round and smooth, she was actually born very well, especially her facial features, which were very beautiful. When she grew up a little, she would definitely be a cute little person with picturesque features. Now that there was a golden patch between her eyebrows, it added a bit of nobility to her. If before, everyone's first reaction when they saw Dumpling was cuteness and fondness, and they wanted to walk over and rub her little face, then when they saw her now, they definitely wouldn't have such thoughts again. Of course, they still liked her, but before that, there was an extra bit of nobility which made people unconsciously feel reverence. Dumpling raised her hand and touched the space between her eyebrows. It was hot and a little hot, but her entire body felt like it was soaking in a hot spring, and it was very comfortable. She thought for a moment, then reached out her hand and gently tapped forward. The transparent enchantment, which had been full of amazing pressure, suddenly dissipated silently and turned into starry lights. They drew an arc in the air and finally all poured into Tuanzi's body. The lotus leaf dress on her body seemed to shine even brighter. Dumpling smiled happily and ran towards Chu Luiwei. This time there was no barrier to stop her, and she quickly rushed to Chu Luiwei. "Ah, you." She threw herself onto Chu Luiwei's lap, raised her little face and said excitedly, "Ah, you. My dress seems to have become prettier." Chu Luiwei, everyone, you summoned the spirit of your ancestor and fused with the totem of your clan, and this is the first thing you thought of? Chu Luiwei resisted the urge to hold his forehead and leaned over to look at Dumpling. The two of them looked at each other. "Dumpling." Chu Luiwei reached out and pointed at her forehead. "What is this?" Dumpling shook her head. "I don't know. It flew over by itself." As she spoke, she touched it again. "I don't think I can remove it." Everyone was speechless. Too much. This was too much. What kind of glory was this? If it were anyone else, they would have been moved to tears, but only you. He actually wanted to get rid of it. Some people were so emotional that they started to roll their eyes. There were also some who gritted their teeth and secretly hated themselves for not having such luck. In short, the atmosphere became very strange. "That's the soul of our ancestor." Yizhao took a deep breath and calmed down a lot. Finally, he spoke in a deep voice. Chu Luiwei looked up at him blankly. "The soul of the ancestors." That was, all those years ago when our ancestor perished and sacrificed himself to the heavens, he left behind a strand of his soul, and it's the ultimate treasure of our clan. Over the years, It has only been summoned by the successive patriarchs when they were in power. Yi Zhao looked at Dumpling with a complicated expression. But today's situation has never happened before. This time not only did the soul of the ancestors appear, but it also landed directly in between Dumpling's eyebrows and became her totem. What did this mean? It went without saying. Chu Liyue was also shocked. In that case, the sudden appearance of the reddish gold totem was even more powerful than she had expected. Yi Zhao said that it would only be summoned by the successive patriarchs when they were in power. Then Dumpling. More importantly, that thing was still stuck to Dumpling's body. What should she do? Even Chu Liyue, who had a strong heart, was a little confused at this moment. This should have already exceeded the scope of discussion for the position of the young master. Yi Zhao paused and finally said, "This is a very important matter. This is an important matter. Come with me." Just like that, the ancestral worship ceremony was forcefully interrupted halfway through. In the square outside the Phoenix Temple, everyone had gathered together and were discussing something in groups of 3 to 5. Their eyes, without exception, were all looking at the Phoenix Temple in front of them. The doors were tightly shut and the atmosphere was heavy. It's already been 15 minutes. I wonder what's the situation inside. What else can it be? Pure bloodline, continuous meridian opening. Now even the soul of the ancestors has been summoned by her. What else is there to say? In any case, I'm convinced. That's precisely why things are so troublesome. If the soul of the ancestors hadn't appeared, they could have left if they wanted to. But it's different now. Even if they wanted to leave, the patriarch and elders wouldn't agree, right? This time, how can the patriarch and elders have the right to speak? The soul of the ancestors has been summoned and has even merged directly into Dumpling's body. This only proves that this is the will of the ancestors. How can the patriarch and the rest dare to disobey? Many people fell silent when they heard this. No matter what they thought, it was the truth. The soul of the ancestors symbolized the highest status of the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan. After today's incident, Dumpling's identity became sensitive. This was equivalent to being appointed by the ancestors. Who would dare to say no? But the most troublesome thing was that she still had a contract with Shangguanyu. No one knew what the outcome would be after today. Inside the Phoenix Temple, it was quiet and solemn. The same place, the same people. For a moment, Chu Liyue's mind flashed back to the first time she and Dumpling entered the temple. At that time they were like fish on a chopping board waiting to be slaughtered. If she wanted to talk to them as equals, she had to threaten them with death. However, in just a month the situation had completely reversed. Now the ones who had the upper hand were her and Dumpling. Yi Zhao and the rest were silent for a long time, as if they didn't know what to say. Chu Liyue didn't say anything and just waited quietly. After all, she wasn't the one who was anxious. The most relaxed person was Dumpling. After the totem landed on Chu Liyue's glabella, it quickly disappeared. Chu Liyue did not continue to pay attention to it and just obediently nestled in Chu Liyue's arms. She hugged Chu Liyue's neck and leaned against her intimately, rubbing against Chu Liyue's face from time to time. After a while, Dumpling finally couldn't help but say, I'm so sleepy." She rubbed her eyes and mumbled coquettishly, "When are we leaving?" As she spoke, she even snuggled into Chu Liyue's arms. Let's go. Let's go home." When Yi Zhao and the others saw the scene, their expressions changed rapidly, and their expressions were brilliant. When they thought about how the ancestor spirit was in Dumpling's body and how she was acting coquettishly in the arms of a human, these big shots who had lived for thousands of years and had seen countless storms suddenly felt their hearts palpitate. Yi Zhao suppressed the countless emotions in his heart, took a deep breath and looked at Chu Liyue. "State your conditions." Chu Liyue was stunned. "What?" Yi Zhao said, "Since Dumpling has been appointed by the ancestor from today onwards, she will be the young master of our clan. When she reaches adulthood, she will automatically inherit the position of the clan leader. In the future, you will also be an honored guest of our clan. If you have any requests, we will try our best to satisfy them. But please break the contract with Dumpling." Digression. I see that other people are starting to update their cloaks. Let's start to update them from today onwards. We will try our best to update them in February as soon as possible. Of course, the previous cloaks are also included. Alright, See you tomorrow at 12. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 1598. Chu Liyue's face paled. Clan leader Yi Zhao, do you mean, the previous bet is not valid? Yi Zhao closed his eyes. If it weren't for this accident, he wouldn't want the Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan to be known as untrustworthy. But this matter was really unsolvable. This is also not what we want, Yi Zhao said. Now that Dumpling has inherited the spirit of our ancestor, she is bound to become the young master of our clan. It is also reasonable for her to inherit the position of clan leader in the future. Under such circumstances, it is indeed very inappropriate for her to continue to maintain the contract with you. In fact, the key to this matter was still the spirit of their ancestor. Originally, it was Yi Zhao who first proposed to let Dumpling become the young master. At that time, he didn't force Chu Liyue to terminate the contract with Dumpling. But the spirit of their ancestor appeared and merged with Dumpling's body. The whole matter had become different. If Dumpling continued to contract with her, wouldn't it be equivalent to their ancestor? This was something they couldn't accept no matter what. Yi Zhao stared at Chu Liyue and said, in fact, even if you terminate the contract, it won't affect the relationship between you and Dumpling, right? And from now on, except for her, the entire Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan will be your helpers. You will definitely not lose. Chu Liyue didn't say anything. Yi Zhao's words were not unreasonable. No matter how one looked at it, the compensation they gave had shown enough sincerity. After all, according to their usual temperament, they didn't even want to say a word more to the human race. Now that they were willing to make such a concession, it was indeed rare. In exchange for the help of the entire Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan with Dumpling's contract, it had to be said that these conditions were indeed quite tempting. But for Chu Liyue, these were not the most important things. He still cared about Dumpling. Dumpling had obtained the ancestral soul. This was both an honor and a responsibility. If she really insisted on having her own way and only let Dumpling stay by her side as a contracted mythological beast, was that really the best choice for Dumpling? The hall was completely silent. Chu Liyue fell into deep thought. Yi Zhao and the others silently waited for her decision. Suddenly, a soft little hand waved in front of Chu Liyue. "Ah, you?" Dumpling looked at her nervously, her eyes full of worry and uneasiness. "You don't want Dumpling anymore?" Seeing her aggrieved and scared look, Chu Liyue's heart suddenly softened. She smiled and patted Dumpling's head. "How could that be?" Dumpling pounced over and hugged her neck, burying her face in her shoulder. Her originally crisp and pleasant voice sounded muffled at this moment. "You don't abandon Dumpling. Dumpling will be good." Worry, fear, and grievance seemed to surge up at this moment. Chu Liyue's heart seemed to be clenched by something in an instant. She was about to say something when she suddenly felt that her shoulder was wet. Her movements suddenly stopped and those words were stuck in her throat. No matter what, she couldn't say them. Dumpling's voice had a trace of imperceptible choking. "You has already abandoned Dumpling once. Dumpling doesn't want a second time." Chu Liyue's heart instantly ached. Yes. How could she forget? Back then, in the imperial ancestral hall of Tianling, she chose to abandon Dumpling and die alone. Later, with great difficulty, she finally found her in the mystic forest. Now she was faced with such a choice again. Perhaps in her opinion, the situation and the original intention of these two times were completely different. But to Dumpling, she was the one who was abandoned. Chu Liyue's eyes were slightly hot. She immediately took a deep breath, hugged Dumpling tightly and kissed her cheek. "Don't worry, you will always like Dumpling. She will always be with Dumpling." Dumpling's small body trembled and only then did she raise her face. Her small face was full of tears, and two crystal-clear teardrops hung on the thick and long eyelashes at the corner of her eyes. Her nose was red and so were her eyes. She looked really pitiful. "Really?" She felt wronged and asked as if she didn't dare to be sure. Chu Liyue smiled and wiped away the tears on her face. "Of course." As she spoke, she looked up at Yi Zhao and the others and said word by word, "Seniors, please forgive me. This request. I'm afraid I can't agree." The negotiation reached a stalemate again. Yi Zhao and the others saw Dumpling's reaction clearly. It wasn't that Shangguan Yu didn't want to terminate the contract, but that Dumpling didn't want to. She had been with Shangguan Yu for many years and had a deep relationship with them. It was indeed difficult for Dumpling to suddenly separate them like this. Elder Yu rolled his eyes and said with a smile, Patriarch Tuanzi is still young and doesn't understand a lot of things. If we force her, I'm afraid it will only make her sad and create a gap between her and us. I think it's better to take this matter slowly. Take it slowly? How can we take it slowly when it concerns the position of the future clan leader? Elder Yi Gong immediately retorted. Moreover, you said to take it slowly. How long are we going to wait? Elder Yu raised his eyebrows. What's the hurry, Grand Elder? I'm also thinking for Dumpling and the entire clan. For now, this is the best way, isn't it? Since both of us have difficulties, why don't we each take a step back and compromise? When Dumpling is older, she can make her own decision. Being able to inherit the ancestors' soul proves that she has received the ancestors' approval. I think Dumpling won't let us down in the future. What do you think, clan leader? You, Elder Yi Gong was speechless. He really couldn't continue arguing when the other party mentioned the ancestor's soul. Humph. He sneered and swung his sleeves. In short, if this matter isn't handled well, our Crimson Gold Sky Phoenix clan will be completely disgraced. Clan leader, please think twice before making a decision. Yi Zhao's face was expressionless. In fact, he was also very conflicted at this moment. Yu and Yi Gong's words weren't without reason. This matter. He opened his mouth and subconsciously glanced at Dumpling. Shangguan Yu was carefully wiping the tears from the corners of her eyes. Yi Zhao's heart seemed to have been smashed by something. He suddenly couldn't say the words that were about to come out of his mouth. After a long while, he finally held his breath as if he had made some kind of decision and said in a deep voice, Yu's suggestion is good. Things can't continue like this. Then let's each take a step back. From today onwards, Dumpling will be our clan's young master. Shangguan Yu, you can continue to maintain the contract with Dumpling, but if the clan needs Dumpling, you must let her come back. After she reaches adulthood, let her make a second choice. Just in case, Dumpling needs to leave a trace of her aura so that our clan can know her situation at any time. Chu Liwei raised her eyebrows slightly. It's a deal. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.